and welcome to Alosa Fumar Takes. This is our 257th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. It's going to be a fantastic show. I've been really looking forward to speaking with this gentleman. I had the opportunity to meet him just a couple weeks ago at the PCA trade show, and we are doing it live here on our 257th take, bringing his story straight to you guys. And I'm so excited for you all to listen to this, whether you're listening on a podcast later or tuning in live with us tonight. It's going to be a story you won't want to miss. But before we get to formal introductions of our guest of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. That, of course, is our sponsors. Tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate has done it once again. Yes, the Liga Privada family has expanded, and it's the new H99 Papas Fritas is now available at Drew Diplomat retailers. The new H99 Papas Fritas, yes, you heard it. The Papas Fritas line is getting an expansion with the H99 brand and blend exclusively extending to that fabled size. So get your Papas Fritas H99 today at Drew Diplomat retailers and let them know that I sent you. You won't get a discount, but just let them know that I sent you anyway. So, and welcome everyone. This is our 257th take. It is my pleasure to welcome in tonight's guest of honor, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Mr. Arnold Serafin of Serafin de Cuba Cigars. Arnold, how are we doing tonight?
Barry, we're doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Honored to be here on your show.
Oh man, the honor is mine, man. I mean, when we get into it here in just a few minutes, you know, your family story and the legacy of your father and grandfather and generations going back, everything, you know, it's, man, it's so exciting. What you're doing with your family's legacy and everything. It's so exciting, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to have you. I'm thrilled to talk about it. So, I
appreciate it.
But I wanted to, first of all, I mean, we're going to get into this here in a little bit earlier. So it was Serafin de Cuba Cigars' first PCA trade show. You recently brought on a national sales manager, Rich Myberg, who's well known. He's been in the industry for forever and done some really great things. But he recently took ill, but he's doing better now, right? He's released from the hospital and everything. I wanted to take the opportunity to wish him well, and it was good to see him at the show. But
oh yeah, Rich is the best. Great guy.
So, and I'm sure he's resting up and probably also like starting a diary of jokes that he can unleash in the world when he's
he's got a repertoire of jokes which is unbelievable. How does he remember all these jokes?
It's crazy. It's insane. It's really.
He's a great guy. I love Rich.
Some of them are absolutely fantastic, and then there's some that are absolutely awful. But it's just so delightful in the interim. It doesn't matter. So
yeah, no matter what, we love them anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Rich,
well, I want to get wish you well, man, and I'm glad you're on the recovery side of things. So make sure make sure to come back and see us as quickly as you can. But yeah, no, I mean Arnold, like you said, you're a fan. Thank you for you're a fan of the show and you're a big supporter of the show. So you kind of know how this goes. I always ask my my guest of honor to select my first cigar. So this is a unique situation. I happen to have, I believe, all of the premium cigars that you offer in your portfolio in front of me.
Maybe you still got a bunch of them.
Yeah. So and so I've got the Florida Tampa in the torpedo size, the Prince of Wales, the La Floridana in the I guess you call it the Gordito size.
Oh yeah, is it the little short one?
Yeah, the 4x60. And then I also have the Don Ramon series in both the 1917 and the 1942 as well. So
you got a good selection there.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've smoked them all. I'll be completely transparent with you. I had the La Floridana that I smoked was not in this size. And it's the one that the La Floridana is also the only one I've smoked one of. So
okay.
So
what are you in the mood for? Do you like more of a milder cigar, more of a medium? What's your palate?
So I've had a really busy day, and I gotta be honest with you, this is gonna be my first cigar. So I have a fresh palate, man. So whatever you want me to smoke, I'll gladly light up and look forward to it.
You smoked my grandfather's yet? The Don Ramon 1917?
Yes, I have.
You have smoked that one. Okay. How about the Florida Tampas?
I've smoked all of them. The only one that I've
You
smoked
smoked
one
all?
of, yeah, I've the only one I've smoked one of is the La Floridana, and I did not smoke it in the size. But I'm trying not to let.
I
I'm trying not to guide your answer here.
I know, I know. It's tough, right? It's tough because I'm always asking folks what they like, what they prefer. But I mean, honestly, I love them all, and I actually have them right here in front of me as well. So um, I don't know, man. You know what? Go with you. Are you a mild smoker at all? Do you like a mild cigar from time to time?
I will absolutely smoke anything. I am. This is the reason why my wife and I hate picking restaurants, because I will literally eat anything, and she's like, but she never likes to pick. So it's just a
I
constant
know
like.
it's that horrible. Sometimes it's hard to say go here, go there.
Yeah,
All right, what the hell? Go with the mild cigar tonight. Do the Don Ramon 1942, which is the one that I created for my dad
awesome.
because he was
The Churchill.
He was a Connecticut guy. Yeah,
Mhm.
he loved those Connecticut rappers, man.
Yeah, I love the picture
I-
of him on your website, man. It's like
oh,
uh,
thank you. It's
perfect.
gonna be 4 years now in December that he's gone, which is unbelievable. But I still feel like he's watching. You know, he's definitely involved in everything I'm doing for sure.
It's awesome. Um, Now I've heard you talk about the Churchill the size specifically that you're pretty fond of it, and I'm guessing he was as well as.
He was, yeah. This one's actually it's a Presidente. It's 7.5 by 50, so it's half an inch bigger. But he loved the Connecticut wrappers. He loved the size, and there's this whole thing about like the old time Cuban guys. If they're playing dominoes or hanging out or whatever, they love this size because they would put it in their guayabera, and if they're playing dominoes, they would just have this thing for like a few hours at least. So it's like the classic Cuban size, and the Churchill too, of course. It's just a little bit shorter, which is like the one I did for my grandfather, which is the 1917 version, and that one has like the little pigtail and stuff on it. We really wanted to go old school with that one, kind of keep it with that whole Cuban fuma, like a little fuma with a folded foot and a pigtail. But this one I just kind of put a mounted head. You know, I love the way they turned out. And it's hard to say which one is more popular because I get folks now that say, "Oh my God, I love the 1942 in the morning. I like the 1917 at night, or later in the day." So it just depends on the person's, like you said, like the palate, the mood that they're in.
You gotta love that. I
Mm.
think that what I've noticed about your portfolio, we're gonna get into it a little bit here in just a minute, but what I've really liked about it so far is that it's uh and I as it as it grows and expands, I'm sure that you could definitely hit this, but like this is a very approachable portfolio. Um, there's nothing too abrasive. There's nothing too like, oh, if you're a mild smoker, you can't smoke that because that's gonna just be too abrasive for your palate.
Yeah, exactly.
Likewise, but if you got people who are like heavy pied smokers, there's cigars here that like one can really appreciate at the same time. So I
I
think
think
that's
the Florida Tampa is more of a cigar for like a smoker that's been seasoned, like a seasoned smoker, I guess is the way that I'd like to describe it.
yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on the one that I'm smoking now was the first one that I smoked. It was the very first cigar of yours that I smoked. Really enjoyed it. Um,
Thank you.
and um, and as I worked away, as I went through the portfolio, it was my favorite until I got to the Florida Tampa. Um, and I really enjoy the Florida Tampa blend. I think that's absolutely good. But um
They're
we're gonna
different, yeah, for sure.
yeah, definitely. We'll get into it. So like let's go ahead and let's just dive in here. That with tonight's major point, which is of course always brought to you by the people. Yeah, cigar people. The people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Phoebe Cousins, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. All right. Well, let's dive in here, Arnold. We're already kind of starting talking about your portfolio and everything. So let's kind of go down the line here. So the cigar that I'm smoking tonight that you picked for me was the Don Ramon series, the 1942. And it's got a photo or a painting um of your father on it.
Of Dad, yeah.
Is it is this an actual, like, did you commission this for the band, or was there another mural? I can't remember this. There's a story about this picture of him.
Yeah, actually, I have that painting of him. It was done by a local artist, a
Yeah.
Cuban lady, and Madeline Noah. She's here in Tampa, and it
Okay.
turns out that right after Dad passed away, she stumbled into my store, and she does several paintings in Ybor City of different things. She paints roosters, a lot of Cuban memorabilia stuff, and not really her forte is not really doing portraits. But when she walked into my store, it turns out she was from like the same area of Cuba where my family's from, which is the central part of the island. Like, if I always say that if you throw a dart, like right where Santa Clara is, that's kind of where my family's from, which is pretty much where Pepin Garcia is from, and a lot of folks are from that central region because that was a big tobacco growing region as well in Cuba, other than Pinar del Rio. But anyway, she walked in and I we started talking for a little bit, and I told her, I said, I would really be honored if you would paint my father, my grandfather, and my great grandfather. And I kind of gave her the idea, the tobacco field and stuff. And when she did it, I was just blown away by it. She did such a beautiful job. And then a few months after that, I said, you know what? I'm going to make Dad cigar, because after he passed away, that was like I kind of look at it like my way of honoring him, but at the same time, for me to what's what I'm looking for, to God, I know in Spanish, but sometimes you think, at least I think in Spanish sometimes, and the words don't come out in English as well. But my way of honoring him and paying respects to him, through his passing, of course. And I just love the way that he came out. He was very happy in the painting, and I just put it on the label, and I think it looks really great.
Yeah, it's got this.
Mourning is the word. That's the word. Mourning.
Mhm.
Is my way to mourn him as well.
I think it's it's got a great story behind it, and I think when people learn it about it, it kind of makes it even more meaningful. I like the coloring of it. It makes it I guess again, it's more than just a photo, right? Like,
it's special.
Yeah, it's a different kind of mural. Like some of the
Sure.
like you think of some of the more iconic people on bands like that aren't even real people. Well, I'm sure they were, but like La Gloria Cubana,
Right.
La Roma de Cuba comes to mind. La Gloria Cubana comes to mind, right? Like
Sure.
those, like that kind of art is different than this. Like this is, it's
very personal.
Yeah, I think it's very personal, but it's just I can't even put my finger on it. That's why I'm stumbling through my words. I'm normally a little bit more graceful, but it's still I think it is because it's personal. Is why I think it's really cool. So,
Thank you.
so he loved shade wrappers. That's why you made it for him. He loves this size as well and everything. Is there any thought to kind of expanding it to different vitolas as well, or do you want to just keep it the one size because of who it's honoring and everything, in homage?
Well, you hit it on the head. I'm gonna tell you a little secret, which I don't know if you figured this one out, but I don't think I had mentioned it. But people would come up to me when I made the cigar, and they'd say, "Well, when are you going to make this in a different size?" I said, "Never." Originally, Bear, I never thought I was going to sell this outside of Florida. I wanted to kind of just sell this on my own, and it's a very limited production cigar. And to tell you the truth, the blend was so popular, and I had other ideas, right, for other brands and stuff. And what I did was I got the blend that I used here, and I used it on Prince of Wales, on the Príncipe de Gales. So it is the same blend. And now this blend, obviously, in this line, comes in 3 different sizes. So it's available in Torpedo, Toro, and Robusto in the Prince of Wales.
Cool.
But as far as it being a Don Ramon 1942, this will be the one forever. Like, it's just his cigar.
I like that. Yeah.
And I'm so honored about the fact, like, people call me and they tell me, "Oh my God, I smoked it with my son, or I smoked it with with a dear family member or whatever." and it creates these memories for them, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with that cigar, you know. And that's the same thing we did with the 1917. And for those of you that are probably curious, 1942 is because that was the year Dad was born, and then 1917 was the year Grandpa was born, and they both had the same name, which was Ramon. So
Yeah, Dad just didn't want to carry. So I'm interested. This like, is there a Ramon in your family, like in your generation?
no, but it's funny because Dad's name was Ramon, and then Arnold was the second name in Spanish, Arnoldo, right?
Oh no.
So then I got Arnaldo, which is what my mother named me, right? Arnaldo. She changed it a little bit, but I don't know, man. Maybe one day I'll just add the Ramon onto my name too, just to keep it going, because
Okay.
it's a big honor for me,
Yeah, I really like the fact that like it's really funny. Like we've talked a lot about like Carlito Fuente, for example, and his dad. We know him as Carlos Fuente Sr.
Sure.
or the old man, or so on and so forth, like the other names and stuff. But as he was growing up, and the people that knew him from his youth and grew up with him in the business, all called Carlos Fuente Sr. Carlito.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
and that's
Carlito
weird, and that's just like weird to think about. Like, I remember talking to like Cynthia Fuente about that, and and her telling, and then and Liana Fuente as well, and her telling stories about how people from like basically from his generation calling him Carlito. I was like, God, that's got to be confusing. That would just
right.
that would just wreck
But
me.
it's so cool. They keep it going. I mean,
Yeah.
now his son is Carlos III now, and that's great that they keep it going. What an honor,
sweet.
Absolutely.
So,
but it's big in many different cultures, but in the Spanish culture for sure. We love to do that, keep the names going.
Well, yeah, and I like it too. I've always, because my heritage is Mexican, which does it both. Usually you're named after your father,
yeah,
but you bring your mother's name along for the ride. Is what my grandma used to tell me and stuff, and so like the names got pretty obnoxious because they'd get really long.
They can get long for sure.
So but this cigar is so just, I really like Churchill's, and in this case what you call the Presidente, just because the smoke is so cool, and this blend is so refined in this size that it just makes
very mellow, right?
Yeah, very mellow, but here's the kicker when you is that it's not lacking in flavor, and it's not like just a lot of times with I've found with Connecticut shade cigars in longer formats, the smoke sometimes cools the tobacco so much that it might very well be like fantastic tobacco, it might very well be like flavorful tobacco, but the smoke cools it so much because of that long chamber that it really mellows it out.
True.
And I don't think this is the case with this one. I really enjoy it. It's very nice.
Thank you. I mean, I feel like that one, there's some Connecticut's that are very, like you said, very mellow. It's almost like you're smoking air, I guess, is what I hear all the time. But that one, I feel like it's not complex, but it's got a lot of flavor, and it's got like that sweetness to it,
Mm-hmm.
Very mild, but very creamy, I guess is the word,
Well, if you want to amp it up to what I've found in the few that I've smoked, and I had this because I smoked this at the trade show when you and I were doing your interview at your booth, and I was smoking this as well. And I
lost my voice, remember?
Yeah, I think it only been like I think it was my second or third cigar of the day. I can't remember, but it was really clean, which made it a really enjoyable smoke at the time. And then, but if you wanted to kick it in the pant, like if you wanted to, I guess, a kick in the pants with it and really kind of amp it up, is the retrohale on this is absolutely fantastic. And it really brings out the exquisiteness of the flavor of the tobacco. And again, it gives the blend a kick in my mind. So if you retrohale it takes it from a mild cigar. It just gives it that nice little kick up the ladder to like that mild medium range without being abrasive. So
it has character, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think it's a really well-rounded cigar, Arnold. You should be really proud of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I know your father is, so that's really cool. But let's talk
I
about
think
your.
he's watching. He's watching.
Oh, he's definitely watching. Let's talk about your grandfather's cigar though. This is um the 1917 Don Ramon series. Um, this one's a little bit darker format, obviously, and um, the Cigar Coop Coalition, two of us, four of us lit this one up when we came to your booth, and all of them were very impressed with it. Um, what
I'm honored.
what is the difference between? Obviously, we talk about the tobacco on the surface level, but let's talk about why it's so different than your father's cigar.
Well, that cigar, the 1917, like you said, I made that one to honor my grandfather back in the day. He pushed it kind of to the limit, and he did so much stuff. I'll tell you a funny story though. When I was 14 years old, Dad took me down to Cuba to visit, and
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother, she was concerned about my aunt, because she was still down there. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago too. But because of that, you know how Spanish people are. They didn't want to break the family. Oh, if I stay here, then oh my God, what are we gonna do? She's over there. So they ended up going back, and my father was always destroyed about that. He was always like, "Oh man, I really wanted Dad to stay here," and I did too, to be honest with you. But anyway, when I was 14, he took me down there to visit, and I remember, he was rolling his own little cigars still, and I looked at him and I said, "Grandpa," I said, can you make me some? I'm only 14 years old. I said, "Can you make me some cigars to take back to Florida?" He said, "Sure." He said, "Go a couple houses down in Santa Clara and visit my neighbor. Can't remember the gentleman's name." And I told him I was there on behalf of Ramon, just like this. And he gave me two or three, nylon bags full of tobacco, different leaves. And between him and my uncle, they made about 50 cigars. They were about little Coronitas. I still say that they were the best cigars I ever had, to be honest with you. But the love and the affection, and they did it right there in the living room of the house. And these guys, they were skilled rollers all their life. That's what they did, right? And when it came time to make a cigar to honor him, which Dad always wanted to make a cigar to honor his father, and unfortunately, he did not get a chance to do that in his life. So I felt like it was unfinished business. And after I made Dad's cigar, I was on a roll. I said, you know what? Now I'm going to make the cigar for Grandpa. And well, how am I going to do it? Little pigtail, folded foot, what these guys used to call a fuma in the country, a little fuma. That's basically it's a Churchill with a little pigtail. But then what I was really shooting for with that cigar was more of a Cuban-esque, I guess, type of blend. And I tried several different blends, and I didn't want to go mild because that wasn't really his palate. He was more of a Cuban cigar. It's a little stronger, and that's kind of what I was shooting for. So we did mostly Nicaraguan on this one. I'm not going to kind of disclose the secret behind the blend, but it's let's just say it's a pretty unique thing I did on that one, I think, and everybody's really digging it.
The wrapper's Corojo, correct?
Yes, it is a Corojo wrapper.
Yeah, so that definitely pays homage to the Cuban roots.
Oh yeah,
that seed is renowned and famous and everything. And of course, it's been taken and done extraordinary things with in both Nicaragua and Honduras, for that matter. So,
oh yeah, and it's sad because now in Cuba they can't grow it anymore because for some years they had I think it was blue mold got it, and they just could not continue to grow it, and that's it's a shame.
It was bad. But, I mean, I'm not an agriculturist. I can't even talk tonight, Arnold. I don't hold any degrees in agriculture or anything, but I mean, but my understanding, and I took several courses in college about the history of Cuba and stuff like that. But one of the things that I think that we're finally seeing the unfortunate fruit of the seeds that were planted after the revolutionaries, everything was the poor crop rotation that was really put into place. I think the sugar cane like in the short term didn't really affect it too much.
Can you imagine a business like that?
Yeah, right. I think it really destroyed the soil, and that's why Corojo can't grow there anymore. I mean, it's just like anything else. Like, I mean, for years.
Sad situation.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, what I think is really cool about what Jeff is doing in at his farm in Claremont is bringing back, tobacco to the state of Florida. But I
Oh yeah,
guarantee
that's huge.
after 30 years of different crop rotations and so like that, what we know as FSG tobacco tastes nothing probably like anyone. So like if anyone was smoking Florida cigars back in the 50s and 60s, there's no way it tastes the same. There's no way it's even close probably to the same product. It's good. I love it. I'm not knocking Jeff's
Right.
product, but it's just one of those things. And I'm fortunately for Jeff, is unfortunate for the island of Cuba, where the Corojo just doesn't work anymore, which is just so sad.
Right. But you know what's interesting now that you talk about Jeff? So back in the day when Florida grew tobacco, it was grown outside of Tallahassee in an area there, Quincy, a little town called Havana, which was named Havana for Cuba. And back in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, they brought over a bunch of Cuban tobacco growers, and they helped, in the cultivation of tobacco there. And the reason that they chose that land back then is because it was that red clay, like that Georgia red clay, and it made the tobacco so rich in flavor. As a matter of fact, John Oliva from Oliva Tobacco, his family had a tobacco farm there for many years, and I think they use it for hunting or other reasons now, or other purposes. But because tobacco obviously up there went by the wayside too. But what Jeff did here in Claremont, he brought some Cuban seeds over, he planted them, and after I don't know how many years it's been now. I think maybe 6 or 7 or maybe even 10. I think, right? But the seeds have obviously taken on a life of their own. But the problem that Jeff has there is it's very sandy, and it's almost like a swamp there in Claremont. So I remember him telling me one time he had to bring in a lot of soil, a lot of topsoil, to be able to get a good crop going there. Because I mean, Florida, it's a lot of sand.
Yeah,
no matter where you are.
The worst part too is like he had a crop wiped out this year with a hailstorm that came through, and that
I heard about that. Yeah. What a shame. That's big. That's big. That's a big operation. When something like that happens, you lose your whole crop. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah. For him, for him, this is a passion project. So it's like, it's not devastating to his family. Fortunately, just like the fire that the Fuentes had earlier this year, like it's tragic, but it's not wiping out. It's not
everything.
wiping out the company, thank God. But
thank God, yeah.
But it still sets you back. I mean, the Henderson Ventura last year, they had a fire. They're starting to recoup from that. So it's unbelievable.
It hurts. It hurts no matter what.
I mean, because we're talking about man-made products, and we're talking about products that, I mean, unfortunately are so susceptible to so many things. I mean, you think about you depend on everything to go right. Everything that the seeds you have to plant at the right time. If there's too much rain, that's a problem. If there's not enough rain, that's a problem. If the humidity is off in the curing barns, that's a problem. You've got to control all these, so many uncontrollables, and that's just to get to the tobacco to the right stage in order to use it to roll a cigar.
Sure.
Then of course you have to have skilled people to roll it.
There's so much to it, yeah, and it's irreplaceable. Once you lose that harvest, I mean, you can't grow that again. It's it'll take another 2 or 3 years down the road, and hopefully it'll be a good harvest, a good crop then.
It's absolutely insane. I really every time that I talk to people about like a different part of the process, because I spend a lot of time on this show with conversations with people. We're talking a lot about the finished product. And, I don't do a lot. We're doing it a little bit tonight, Arnold, just because this is your first time on the show. And I thank you so much again for gracing us with your presence tonight.
Thanks for having me, man.
The honor's mine, honestly. I normally don't do a lot of wrapper binder filler, just because, I mean, I can nerd out on that shit all day. Like, that really, we're kind of doing it now, actually, as we're kind of talking about tobacco in sense. But I mean, I'm really excited about the stories and stuff, which we're kind of getting into as well. Which kind of let's kind of go on. So I guess in the spirit of things, we're talking about Florida tobacco, and I know there's no Florida tobacco in it, but Florida Tampa, the Tampa flower. I think this is my favorite blend so far that you make, that I've smoked. And that's not.
I love the way this turned out.
I love everything about it. I love the label. I love the blend. Let's talk a little bit about it. Because this is a historic brand that you were able to get the trademark, bring it back, talk a
Yep.
little bit more about it.
Well, Florida Tampa was a brand that was around basically in the heyday of Tampa back in the 1800s. I believe it was probably made till about 1905 or 1906, and then it just kind of disappeared. Well, when Dad was alive, I have a love of history, of course, all sorts of history, but tobacco history specifically. Cuban, Tampa, which was at one time, a lot of people don't know this, but Tampa made more cigars. Tampa, Florida, Ybor City made more cigars, rolled more cigars than Havana, Cuba did, which was pretty amazing. And I've had a lot of conversations about this with Carlito before, and many people that know, and he's obviously a wealth of information as well. And the deal was back in the day, what they were doing was they were sending the tobacco up the Gulf, and they were, the tobacco came up here. Obviously, Key West was the first place, because they had factories for many years. And then Tampa kind of grew after a hurricane that happened in Key West that devastated the island. Men like Mr. Ybor decided to kind of relocate to Ybor City or to Tampa and create Ybor City, of course. But Florida Tampa was one of those brands that was made up here. And, back in the day, it was all Cuban leaf, mostly Cuban rollers, Cuban owned, I'm sure, at the time, too, from what I was able to gather. But it's just really neat that we were able to make the cigar. But Cuba back then, they didn't have a law, on tobacco, like like export of leaf, raw material. So all the raw material came up here. And those cigars, they would call them clear Havana at the time. And the clear Havana, they said, the statement was they were made in bond. And what that meant was that they would pay a tax, to the government here, but using Cuban tobacco. It was kind of like a loophole, really. But then the Cuban government some years later said, well, we don't want to do that anymore. We really don't want to send that much leaf up there. So they kind of tightened things up a little bit, and then they really started cranking out more production in the island. And then the clear Havanas kind of, they didn't fold all together, but there was less of them being made. And Florida Tampa was one of those brands. It was just a historic Tampa brand. I when Dad was alive, we would always look at old labels and books and stuff that I have. And I remember showing this one to him, and I said, wow, Dad, isn't this beautiful? He said, yeah. He says, boy, that would be something if we could make that cigar and bring it back, right? I said, I think it would be great. And again, these are all things that have happened after he passed away, which I kind of feel bad about it because I'm like, wow, what a great opportunity when he was around to have done it. But, he's still the inspiration for me doing all this, really, because he loved the history. He loved the history of Tampa, of Ybor City, Cuba, cigars, of course. But that's basically the history of Florida Tampa.
Yeah, let's kind of dive into this. I'll kind of wait to the end, but I think you provided a really good opportunity to chat about this, Arnold, because this is my favorite part of your story is, you guys have, you guys being your family, of course, I mean, have been involved in tobacco and cigars dating back to even prior to Cuba, the Canary Islands, if I'm not mistaken, before
You're
moving
right.
to Cuba. And of course, we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But this history goes back generations and everything. And then here you and your father are running, 2 stores in the Tampa area, 2 very widely regarded. And I mean,
Thank
everyone
you.
that I've talked to you about just your retail operation too, I mean, you've garnered so much respect from some of the big names in the industry. We talk about your relationship and friendship with Carlito Fuente and other other people of that fraternal old guard, if you will. And they have so much
Sure.
respect for you and your father that it really has brought this incredible story to light. But my favorite part of this whole thing is that, like, well, let me just ask it this way: if your father obviously couldn't have lived forever, we would have liked him to.
Yeah, I know.
But if his passing hadn't happened, would you and I be talking? Maybe not
Sure.
today, but would you and I be talking at some point? Do you think this would have happened eventually?
I think it would have happened eventually, but a lot of my friends tell me that when he passed away, it's like it ignited the spark in me to do all this. And to be honest with you, Bear, I've done this in like the last, almost 4 years, which is amazing, really. It's like to have unleashed all these different cigar brands and come out with all this stuff. It was almost like I was on a roll. I was like, okay, now I'm going to do this one, I'm going to do that one. And I'll tell you a little secret. I got other ones that I'm going to do. I got other ones in the back burner. Hopefully soon, but my wife says, hey, one thing at a time. She's always kind of guiding me, saying, let's take it one step at a time, make sure that everything is running the way that you want to do it. And like Carlito always says, you can't rush the hands of time, right? We want to make sure that they're ready to be smoked. They're ready, they're cured. People are going to smoke them and say, it's a great cigar. It's, that's what I want. I want them to be memorable smokes, not just make a cigar for the hell of it. And you're right. I mean, who knows when it would have happened, but Dad was definitely more conservative. For many, many years, we sold cigars, out of the store, and they were just our naked bundles. And, we developed quite a following with just our regular hand rolled, naked bundle cigars. And I think they're a good everyday cigar, a good product. Because let's face it, I mean, not everybody can afford a premium cigar all the time, right?
Sure.
But what I've noticed is a lot of people they'll still buy the bundles, for their golfing trips, fishing, whatever, right? Their everyday smokes. But now they're gravitating more towards the premiums. And when they try them, they come back and they say, man, Arnold, that's such a different smoke than what I was used to from before. And they're even, the regular customers appreciate the quality and appreciate what I've done. It's making something different, something unique, really. But I'd like to say that, it's a dream come true, really, for me, especially, for me to be able to do this. And, it's ironic because when I created Florida Tampa, which was one of the first ones, that I did, Carlito actually called me and he said to me, look, I've been watching what you're doing and I'm really honored and I'm very happy for you and keep it going, And he called me that night to give me condolences on Dad's passing. And it just kind of, we started talking about everything else. I mean, what a gentleman, right? What a great person. He's definitely an inspiration for me, a good friend, always has been, and continues to inspire me and many, many other people, so.
It's really funny how in life, how like, I mean, the overused term is like from the ashes of tragedy, right? Rise up, the phoenix, right? Metaphor that always
Sure.
kind of have. But I think there's something to that. There's always this catalyst event in our lives that kind of drive us to that next level. And I may not ever be a part of something great.
I think you're a part of something great now, man. I think.
Well, I'm a part of this great industry, and I love it. But
you do
you
so much for the industry.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very humbling. But like
absolutely.
What I'm talking about, like too, like there's like these catalytic events that occur in like the timeline of history and everything that kind of get things going, and it's usually something. And a lot of times it's something incredibly positive, but and sometimes it's tragic, right? Like, I mean, unfortunately, we were talking about the fire and the recent fire that the Fuentes had. That goes back long list of fires
throughout their history,
over a century. Theft,
so much tragedy.
Theft of a huge container filled with God knows, I don't even want to know what they lost in there. That's just sad. But like, it's these hard events that occur in life that I think that really kind of drive people to the next level to do things, and it I think it makes the inspiration that much more awe-inspiring because
You're right.
in the waking of your father's passing, we're introduced to this inspiration in real time, seeing you not only honor your father and your grandfather within the Don Ramon series, but like bringing about these brands that have been long forgotten, erased to history and erased to memory. Like there's no one,
they were lost. They were just lost.
There's no one alive today. Well, now there is because you brought it back, but until you brought it back, there's no one alive today that had smoked a Florida Tampa cigar.
Isn't that crazy? I'll share another great story with you. Right at the PCA, so many great stories and conversations with everybody, and just great people. Eric Newman stopped by the booth on the very last day, to see Rich, because him and Rich are great friends. They go back years as well. And Eric saw the picture of La Floridana, the drawing
Mm-hmm.
with the lady on it and stuff, on the label.
Mhm.
And he looked at me. He said, "We did business with those people." I said, "Really?" I said, "Eric, from my understanding, that company folded back in 1972, because I've done my research and I know." And I go, "That's going back a long time, and I'm so honored to be able to bring that back." And he said, "Yeah, that's a beautiful label. It's a beautiful story." And funny thing is, the further I went back and researched the history of that label, it was actually a son of Mr. Ebor's named Candido Ebor, with another Cuban guy named Emilio Pons. They were the creators of La Floridana. And then, you're talking about early 1900s, all the way to 1972. And then they also had tragedies and stuff along the way, and stories of people that passed away and stuff. But it was a really popular brand for so many years, and then it just went by the wayside. Like you said, it was forgotten. Nobody ever did anything with it. And I'm just so honored to bring that one back as well. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm rescuing a big piece of Tampa
I
history
think
here.
I think you are, and I think that's really great. It's one of the reasons why I'm so infatuated with these stories here, Arnold. And one of the people that I'm a really big fan in this industry is Kurt Kendall. 724 Cigars. In a way, he's doing the same thing with
Sure.
labels that 724 was one of the brands that have been lost to time. And
Yeah, that was another classic brand.
the Hustler, all of his lines are stuff that he brought back, and even the short-lived Spider, which was probably my favorite cigar that he ever made, and unfortunately he can't make it anymore because of other stuff, but I'm not going to get into that here. But
Sure.
but the Spider was a brand that was in the early 1900s in New England, and it's really kind of beautiful. You've mentioned Mr. Ebor several times, so we're talking about Vicente Martinez Ebor, who had started operation in Key West. You mentioned that. Talk about you're so learned in this area, Arnold. I'd really kind of want to regale my audience a little bit more with what transpired. As we know, Tampa as the Cigar City, Ybor City, the historic district where J.C. Newman is headquartered, and talk a little bit about that history before we go into his first cigar and the one that you brought back as well.
Sure. Well, funny thing is, Carlito loves that story too. So Tampa and Ybor City, right? It all started because of guava trees. And people that are watching the show today, they're going to be laughing. Some people might not even know what the hell a guava tree is. You know what a guava is, right? The little guava.
Absolutely. Love guava. It's fantastic.
Well, guava's great, right? I love guava, like a good guava juice. But anyway, it's a funny story, because in Cuban Spanish, if somebody says to you, "Hey, they stuck you with a guava," it means that they lied to you. They bullshitted you. So the story about the guava is Mr. Ebor was down in Key West. He had his factory there, 1869. So he founded the brand, the Prince of Wales, El Príncipe de Gales, in Havana in 1853. Now, what's interesting about Mr. Ebor is that he was a Spaniard born in Valencia, Spain, but he went to Cuba at a very young age, got into the tobacco business there in Cuba, into the cigar business, learned how to make cigars. And some years later, Cuba was trying to, of course, get their freedom from Spain. And he kind of fell out of grace with the Spanish government because he was helping the rebels, the Cubans. And basically the Spaniards, his
Amazing
fellow
how that
Spaniards, right? Yeah, it's incredible. His fellow Spaniards told him and said, "You got to get the hell out of here, because they're going to come for you, and they're going to get you, and they're going to arrest you." So obviously, think about it. 1800s, where was the closest place for him to go? Key West. And it's funny because in Key West at that time, there was already a handful of Cubans making cigars, clear Havanas, like I was telling you earlier. Another one that was rolling cigars for making cigars, there was a Cuban guy named Eduardo Hidalgo Gato, and Arturo Fuente, Carlito's grandfather, of course, that bears the name of the factory. He worked at the Hidalgo Gato factory. The Gato, they used to call it the Gato factory. So he was the competitor of Mr. Ebor in Key West. But anyway, going back to the guavas, there was two other guys, a Spaniard named Gavino Gutierrez. He was, I believe, an engineer. And there was a Cuban guy named Bernardino Gargol. And these two guys were friends, and they were in New York City. Well, Gargol had a guava jelly business, which is funny, like a marmalade business. And he was in New York City, but somebody said to him, "Hey, guess what? There's a place in Florida called Tampa, and there's wild guava trees that are growing over there." And imagine that in the 1800s, right? He said, "Really?" He said, "Well, I got to get down there and see if this is real. If this is an actual thing." So I always like to envision this in my mind, right? I got the story like brained in my mind. Imagine they come down, from New York on a steamship, which they did, and that steamship came down the Atlantic, stopped in Key West, which is down here. And when they stopped in Key West, imagine Key West in the 1800s. Primarily Spanish, Cubans. Everybody knew each other. Very small town, and they happened to bump into Mr. Ebor. And have you ever been to Key West? Have you seen like the old patios there, like the front porch of the houses?
I haven't had the opportunity to visit, no, but
You'll love it. You got to go down there with your family and stuff. It's a great little place to go. Very touristy, but really cute. The houses there, which are the same ones that were built in Tampa in the heyday during the cigar days, they were called shotgun houses, and they were just a long house with a big porch, and the breeze would come from the front door to the back door. And anyway, a lot of the old time Cubans would play dominoes on the front porch, and that was kind of what how that went down. But the funny thing is, I always like to envision that they bumped into Mr. Ebor on a rocking chair on one of those old Key West homes, and he was listening, and he met them, and they probably had a cup of coffee because these guys were gentlemen, right? They drank their coffee and they had their cigars, and they probably mentioned, "Oh, well, we're going to be going to Tampa tomorrow on the steamship," and then he said, "Well, can I come with you guys?" "Oh yeah, it'd be an honor." So here he meets these two guys. They get on the boat together. They come up to Tampa. Mr. Ebor buys 40 acres, and those 40 acres became Ybor City. So what a great story. And then of course he moved his factory from Key West to Tampa, which at the time there was a magnate here named Henry Plant, and Henry Plant was responsible for making the railways, the railroad here in Tampa,
right,
among other
station at
things.
Fort Brooke, right? That was the point of
Right.
station, right? Yeah.
Among other things. And then Henry Flagler was on the east coast of Florida, so the idea was all the trains were going to connect. And Mr. Ebor saw the opportunity. He's like, I'm in Key West. I'm a little bit more isolated down there. It was being a little bit of a problem for him to get his products to the rest of the country. So he figured Tampa would be a great hub for him. And he built a beautiful brick building, which still stands today. It's obviously not a cigar factory anymore, but what a testament of time to go there and see this. At one time, it was the biggest cigar factory in the world. It was a whole block long. And that building is still there. It encompasses a whole block. It's unbelievable. It's
That's
unbelievable.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Finish your
Oh,
story because then I'll make a comment.
I was just going to say, an afterthought, which was huge, of course, too. Cuba's patriot leader was a gentleman named Jose Marti. He was like the George Washington of Cuba.
Right.
Well, he came to Tampa. I think it was 22 times because he was based in New York City at the time. And when he would come to Tampa. He'd come to Key West and rally support for the troops. And every cigar maker during that time, I want to say that the number, which is amazing, back then, I think it was about 80 cents or $1 they would donate per week out of their salary. And with that money, that was the money that they gave towards the cause of Cuban freedom. And the reason that I brought him up is because there's a very famous picture of Mr. Jose Marti and Mr. Ebor in the factory, standing outside the brick building, and it's unbelievable. It's like one of those old shadow box pictures from the day. And just recently, some people have come forward, descendants of some of the people in the picture, and they said, "Oh, that was my uncle, that was my grandfather," and they've been able to pinpoint some of the people in the picture. But
That's cool.
It's just such an iconic picture, and it just goes to show how much of a huge part of Cuban history and Tampa history Mr. Ebor was. And I have a friend of mine who's the one that painted the label for my grandfather's cigar. He's a lover of history, and he's in Cuba, Milton. And Milton said to me, he said, "It's unbelievable that that Mr. Ybor here in Cuba is not even, nobody talks about him. He's forgotten. And it's obviously, I don't want to get into politics, but it's part of the whole thing with the regime and, wiping out the history and stuff. But, for me, it's like I'm rescuing history, and down there, they don't even talk about it. It's very sad.
It's so funny. Like, there's a very famous, it's in The Godfather Part 2, right? And it's the very famous scene where Michael Corleone is talking to, oh gosh, now I'm going to forget the character's name, and I've seen it 1,000 times. But it's
So Hyman Roth.
Hyman Roth. Thank you for the assist here. So Hyman Roth, and they're talking
Love
about
that movie.
Yeah, so Hyman Roth is talking about the city of Las Vegas, and he's talking about the fictional character of Mo Green, and how Mo Green, who it was actually Bugsy Siegel that that created Las Vegas, but that's who the Mo Green in this fantasy world is supposed to be. And he talks about, and it's true, like in the city of Las Vegas exists today. We were just there a couple of weeks ago. And there's not a statue, there's not a plaque, there's nothing about Bugsy Siegel, who created, and obviously he had a very checkered past and everything like that, but at the same time there's not even anything to commemorate the person that built it. And that reminds me, when I hear about the story of Mr. Ybor, it is like, other than the name of the city, which is obviously been it's been man, I am losing sight of my English language tonight, but like, but it's part of the city of Tampa now, obviously. But,
it's huge history. Yeah.
But that's the only commemorative part of it, is just the name of the.
We got a few statues. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I told you, Mr. Ybor's great grandson is a gentleman named Raphael. Raphael is the last descendant of the Ybor family. He's 94 years old. And I stay in touch with him. I speak to him at least twice a week. And his wife passed away earlier this year, so he's kind of sad about, obviously, very sad about that. So he doesn't really get out much. I mean, he's 94 years old. When I told him 2 years ago that I was bringing back his great grandfather's brand, he was just ecstatic. He said, "Arnold," he goes, "I never thought in my lifetime that I'd see this brand come back again, and here you are bringing it back. I'm so honored." And I'll share this with you too. Mr. Ybor is buried in a cemetery called Woodlawn Cemetery, or I'm sorry, Oaklawn, I think it is, out right in downtown Tampa, which is, back then it was not downtown, but that's where it is now, right? It was just a little part of Tampa. And I went up there to his tomb and I said, I'm going to bring the cigar back, and I know you're watching. And I go, I said, I want you to at least, help me out from wherever you are. Just give me a hand. I want it to be a little bit successful. I said just a little bit, not as much as when you had it. Because like I said, it was the most famous brand of Cuban cigars in its time. I mean, wow, what an honor, right? And, his great grandson still cleans his tomb, the tomb and the burial site. He has it cleaned once a year, freshened up, painted. And then he was responsible. Raphael was a great man. He was a banker. And I even asked him, I said, "I'm surprised you didn't bring this brand back." He said, "Arnold, I'm not a cigar man." He goes, that got lost in my family. He goes, "I was a banker, very educated man." He was born in Havana, and then after the revolution, him and his wife came here, Cecilia, and, they settled in Tampa. Very respectable people. They were members of the Rotary Club here in Ybor City, very decent people. And he had a bust made for his great grandfather. And then the other one that was made, which is right at the entrance of Ybor City, he was instrumental in getting that one made as well. So at least, Cuba, unfortunately, like I said, they have their thing going on down there, which I don't agree with, obviously. But at least here in the Tampa area, we definitely commemorate, I guess is the word, all this beautiful history, because Tampa and Ybor City is the cradle of Cuban independence. And it's all intertwined together. All these guys fighting for the history or for the freedom of Cuba back then, cigar makers. I mean, it's our history. It's our, and for me especially, it's like my passion. Like I could talk about this for hours.
The word I was looking for earlier was annexation. So
Annexation, right?
Yeah, Ybor City's been annexed into the city of Tampa.
Yep, they sure did. Yeah.
But what's what's going on in this country right now a lot with some of these older neighborhoods and stuff, and in a lot of ways it's cool because you get really historic neighborhoods that have been refurbished, and the gentrification is the modern word for it, regentrified and
Right.
everything. And in some ways it erases a lot of the history. What I really liked about Ybor the times that I've been there is that they've definitely clung to that. And that's the sad part, is like you look at, you stand on the steps of like the JC Newman factory, the Ulrilo factory there.
So much
And
history, so much.
it's the last standing one. It's the last one. And
Oh, yeah.
for that, in that 40 acres that you talked about, there were more cigar factories per capita than anywhere else in the planet.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? I mean,
Yeah.
it's mind boggling.
And they just like, for people who've been down to like, let's use Esteli as an example. Like if you go down to Esteli now, in the last 25 years, there's been so many pop-up factories. There's still the big ones. Perdomo, Drew Estate,
Right.
My Father, etc. Like all these big ones, and then but there's so many small ones too. Like even smaller than like Nico Sueño, that like Skip Martin, Mike Rosales run, like smaller than that even, that have popped up, and that still is dwarfed. Like as many of cigar factories as are in Esteli, and if people who've been to Esteli, they know what I'm talking about. As many factories as are there now, that number is dwarfed by what was inside that 40 acres in Ybor City. It's
Isn't that crazy?
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And you want to hear another funny fact about that? Is that a lot of the buildings, they were built east to west because of the way the breeze was and stuff, and the sun, because back then they needed to be able to use as much sunlight as they could. And most of the factories, and I believe the Newman's factory, and I know Carlito's factory, the old Charles the Great factory, has a lookout tower up on top. And you know what that was for? When the boats would come, the ships would come from Cuba with the tobacco. They'd go up there and see if the ship had come into the harbor, into the port. And that was their way to know that the tobacco was already here. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, they couldn't text them on their phone to let them know they were there.
Times, man. My God. But people, they were so smart with the stuff they did back then, so creative.
And I mean, it was really, I mean, what Mr. Ybor built and eventually led to what Tampa is today. Tampa is, one of, I mean, tourism is probably its number one export now, and definitely its biggest contributor to the economy. But there's still $15 billion that goes through that port every year. 15 billion.
Amazing, huh?
It's crazy. The other thing
he laid the foundation. He laid the foundation for the city.
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell people, I go, that's why I always feel good about lighting up a cigar anywhere in Tampa. And I go, Cigars built this town. I mean, that's what it's about, man. I mean, where else can you say that, in the United States like that?
Right.
It's just unbelievable.
You mentioned Jose Marti, which is an iconic person in Cuban history, and his relationship to Mr. Ybor as well. I love this. This is a fun fact for audience too. And you being a son of Tampa, this, and it's probably ingrained in you. But you can actually go to Cuba without using your passport, and you won't get in trouble for it. You can do it in the city of Tampa. There is
That's right.
It's a park with that bears Marti's name, right? I don't know how big it is, but it's a small park that is actually not technically, it actually is Cuban soil.
Now, the funny thing about that park is the building right across the street is Mr. Ybor's factory. It's right across the street from the park. But the reason that park was built on that land is because there was a boarding house there, and the boarding house belonged to an Afro-Cuban lady, Black Cuban. Her name was Paulina Pedroso, and Mrs. Pedroso, every time Jose Marti would come to town, he would stay at her boarding house. Paulina and Ruperto Pedroso was the name of the couple that had the property. And one time the Spaniards, because there was both sides. There was a lot of Spaniards and Cubans, and there were some Italians, of course, in Ybor City as well. And every faction kind of had their own little thing going on, right? Well, there were spies for the Spanish government in Tampa at the time, and they poisoned Jose Marti. And believe it or not, the Pedrosos were the ones that nurtured him back to health. And, of course, in 1902, Cuba became free and everything else. And then there was a big movement to get that park and donate that land to the, Republic of Cuba. And still, after all these years, I think it was in the 50s that happened, because it was during Batista's time. Cuba has never maintained that park. So, there's a few Cuban organizations here that they go there, they clean it up, they fix up the greenery, and they've had it maintained all these years. But you're right. Once you go into that park, you're stepping into a park that belongs to a foreign government, which is the only foreign government in the United States that has a piece of land like that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, the only thing close to it's actually outside of my hometown, in El Paso, Texas. It's called the Chamizal, and it used to be known as no man's land because the Rio Grande, the Rio Grande, which separates the United States and Mexico, Texas and Mexico.
Sure.
Before it was, canaled and everything, and it was somewhat controlled, is that every couple of years, the river would wash over, and there's this section of land called the Chamizal.
I think I've heard of it.
I should know this. I think it's about 17 acres. I might be wrong about that, but 17 acres of land essentially, that at some point you would be in Mexico. If you lived on that land, you lived in Mexico, and then a couple years later you would live in the United States. And so it became this no man's land. And now it still is. It still is. It's not, it's maintained by both governments, but it is truly free land. Like there's no controlling government of it. So, and now there's this, international park there, and they hold music festivals and stuff like that. And it's a cool spot. Both governments have done a really good job of maintaining it. It's pretty cool. But my part of my family story is my great grandfather had owned a house at the north end of the Chamizal, and so he was one of these people that was Mexican and American, depending on the way that the river flowed,
the way the tide came in.
Yeah, exactly. So they moved to the Mexican side years later, and owned a large, but just on the other side of the border too. As the story goes in my family, he was friends, quotation marks for people listening later, they can't hear me say this, he was friends with Pancho Villa.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and the reason
That's
I put
amazing.
things in quotation marks is that Pancho Villa, in his many raids of the United States, he would come across the border, and he would use among other farms and ranches along the border, he used my great grandfather's land to basically rest his men, and it was a good exchange of friendship, because he was like, we're going to stay here, and in exchange for letting us stay here, we won't kill you. So that's it was
Sure.
a good friendship, quality based on trust.
People always negotiated, right? Even back then, especially back then. Oh boy.
So we're talking about
Mexico was so big back then. I was looking at a map the other day, and it stretched from California to all the way out to New Mexico, and further south in Central America,
parts of Colorado, Nevada.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Utah, even portions of that. Like it was massive. It was massive.
It was massive.
Yeah.
So, California especially.
But this was Mr. Ebor's brand, the Prince of Wales, the Príncipe de Gales.
Yep.
Why is it named after the Prince of Wales?
Okay. So I asked Mr. Ebor's great grandson that question. I said, wow, what was the deal? Well, back then, I guess in the 1800s, the Prince of Wales was, hold on a second, it was Charles's great grandfather. I want to say it was Edward, is who it was. Or I think it was Edward or George. But anyway, he was like a bachelor, and he was a baby, but he was very famous. It was always in the news, I guess, at that time. And Mr. Ebor saw it in like a newspaper, and it just kind of caught his attention. And it just, it was an amazing like story back then. And he just decided to name it the Prince of Wales, and there was no connection. I mean, he was Spanish, and Prince of Wales is English, of course, or Welsh, right? And just an amazing story. And I've even asked myself the question. Excuse me. I've said, I wonder if the Prince of Wales at the time, if he smoked a cigar, if they knew about this brand back then. I'm sure, because think about it, Havana cigars, right? They were the most famous cigars. And this is a brand that goes back to Havana to 1853. So I'm sure that even the Prince of Wales at one time, maybe smoked these cigars, but we haven't been able to confirm that. Even Raphael has said he thinks so, but he's not 100% sure.
Very cool story.
But it really is cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen some of the ads that I've posted and stuff. Like there was some historical ads, and you'll see, the Prince of Wales at the time wearing his, uniform, his officer's uniform, and with a feather in his hat and on a horse, and just, man, they're just so royal, such a regal brand, such a time honored brand. Yeah, elegant, I guess.
Yeah, I mean I spent some time in the UK just a few weeks before the PCA, and
I saw that. Yeah.
And
how was it?
Oh, it's great. It was absolutely great.
It was awesome.
We talk about the history of things, here and stuff. It's, we're talking about the 1800s, which is like, that's a fucking long time ago. Like,
it was a long time ago, man.
Right.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So I'll give you some nuggets here. So like my wife is part of the church choir, and that's why we were over there. They were doing a tour. I don't sing. My wife sings. And she got to sing in some pretty amazing places, including St. Michael's Church, and that was built in 1592.
Wow.
Yeah, the chapel at Stirling Castle, which is 1,000 years old.
That's even more amazing. Yeah.
Crazy, right? So
unbelievable.
I had the opportunity to climb the William Wallace Monument, which, Arnold, that's a fucking trek. I'm going to tell you, man. It's like 248 steps straight up.
Wow.
But that's not even the hard part. The hard part is climbing up the hill to get to the monument.
Oh, I'm getting tired just listening to
get. Yeah. So, but I get up to the top, and it's really great. But like it's a beautiful view, and it's a lot of history as well. And you can see Stirling Castle from the top of the monument, and the monument is the youngest thing I saw.
Wow.
It's the youngest thing I saw.
Yeah, because everything is so old.
Yeah. 1845. 15 years before the Civil War in this country broke out. 15 years before, right, or 10 years before the Prince of Wales cigar. That's the youngest thing I saw.
That's great. That's wild, man. You go to Europe, everything is so old. They even say it. They even say it over there. Like, the United States is new.
Yeah.
Compared to the Europe, it's true.
We're babies, man. It's crazy.
We're babies.
Yeah, but it's
amazing.
It's some great history. So speaking of history, we're gonna jump segments here, and we're gonna come back to your experience at PCA and a couple of other things. Thank you so much for walking us through your portfolio, Arnold. What history?
Yeah, thanks for everything.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
What incredible history! Some great cigars. I'm about
a
little past halfway through the 1942.
How's it smoking?
Oh, fantastic! It's absolutely fantastic. I'm
glad you're enjoying it.
Really, I've just really enjoyed all of these cigars and getting to know your portfolio. I don't get to say this too often. There's nothing in the portfolio that I don't like.
Thank you.
And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I mean, everything hits, and I
appreciate that. Thank you.
So we're going to go into our presidential trivia segment, which is, of course, always brought to you by United Cigars. They are, of course, distributors featuring La Gianna Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, the Firecracker, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. So smoke one today and start living united. So before becoming president, here's the question here, Arnold. Before becoming president, this future executive launched his self-recruited military force out of the city of Tampa before going to war. Which president am I talking about? Is it A, Dwight Eisenhower, B, John F. Kennedy, C, Teddy Roosevelt, or D, Ulysses S. Grant?
I would say it was Teddy Roosevelt.
It is Teddy Roosevelt. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
as a matter of fact, he stayed at the El Pasaje Hotel is where he stayed with the Rough Riders, or
the Rough Riders, exactly. Yeah, he recruited the Rough Riders here in my home state, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, in a hotel called the Manger, owned by a German family down in San Antonio. I I smoked a cigar on my honeymoon in the Manger Bar 2 months
Wow.
before they outlawed smoking indoors in San Antonio. So I was one of the last people to smoke inside the Manger Bar. It was really
shit.
cool. So
Beautiful town though.
yeah, beautiful city. But that's where Teddy recruited a lot of his Rough Riders. They went down to Florida, stayed at the hotel that you're talking about in Tampa, and then from Tampa they went down to Cuba.
Down to Cuba. San Juan Hill. As a matter of fact, the Cuba Libre, right, the rum and coke, was made famous in Santiago de Cuba to celebrate, the freedom of Cuba. It was, you got the rum from Cuba and you got the coke from the United States, and they put it together, and it was the Cuba Libre.
Yeah,
and that's where that cocktail came from too.
I love the history of Coke and the Cuban people. So I've had the opportunity to have a conversation with Rafael Nodal a few times on this show, and Rafael talks about
good friend.
Raphael talks about the story of when it was the Great Migration. So this was, a couple decades after the revolution, obviously in the late 50s, and, families, the Fuente family, Padrones, Plasencias, etc., had all left at that point, and they were starting their stories, trying to find out where to grow the next great tobacco, right? And that's much dialogue. But a few years later, Raphael, his family, and hundreds of other families, came to Florida in this great migration that allowed the Cuban government basically gave the free pass to all these people, right?
The Mariel boat lift,
exactly. So they were the Mariel boat lift, and they were greeted at the American border with a meal, very simple meal, an apple and a Coke, Coca-Cola.
Coke. I mean, there's nothing more American than both things, right?
Yeah. So, they should have at least made an apple pie, but that's just me. But
that would have been pushing it though, but that would have been great.
But yeah,
I'm sure he was happy to get both.
It's and no, but it's really funny. Like to this day, Raphael's got a soft spot. He's a man of well-refined tastes. He loves he loves food, and he loves all kinds of
classical trained pianist as well.
Yes,
plays the piano, unbelievable. What a great guy.
Yeah.
Just a very great person, very knowledgeable, very educated. It's always great to have, to spend time with him.
And he still drinks Coca-Cola. Like it's his thing.
And he still drinks Coke. Yeah.
Yeah.
He loves that.
Because of that. And
and he makes a hell of a great cigar, right? I mean, Aging Room is one of the best. Plus all the other ones now that him and AJ have collaborated on.
Oh, unbelievable. Did you get a chance to smoke the new Monte Cristo Diamante?
No, I haven't, but I hear it's really, really great.
I got a chance to smoke it, and it was really good. If I'm being honest, I'm still a bigger fan of the original 1935 that he released a couple of years ago.
Oh, that was a good smoke.
But the Diamante is for, if you thought that cigar was too full, it's very full body, full flavored, and if it's a little out of your wheelhouse, the Diamante takes it a step back. It's much more nuanced. Still incredible flavor, but
gotta try it.
Really nice cigar. Beautiful smoke. Fantastic cigar.
But give it a crack.
But yeah, I love the history of Coca-Cola and Cuban people. It's funny how
it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Cuba Libre all the way to the Mariana boat lift, and it's
now you want to hear the irony of Coca-Cola with Cubans?
Please.
The CEO of Coca-Cola for like 20 something years was a Cuban guy named Roberto Goizueta. And he passed away, I think it was back in the early 2000s, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he was responsible for many accomplishments at the company. But the one thing that he did that was bad was the new Coke. I don't know if you remember that, the new Coke back in the 80s. And that was a flop. So that was the only thing that he did that didn't really take off. But he was instrumental in the company. And he actually came from my dad's same town, Santa Clara. He worked his way up in Cuba, in Coca-Cola. And then when the revolution happened, then he left Cuba, went to the Bahamas, I think. And he worked there. And then he worked his way up, all the way up to CEO of the company. So what an amazing connection, right?
Yeah.
And he donated a lot of his fortune, or the family did, to Emory University in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole school of business called the Roberto Goizueta School of Business. So that's pretty honorable.
That's right. That's cool. Yeah, my day job is our headquarters is down in Atlanta, and I've spent some time down there.
Oh wow,
That's really cool. The
don't quit your day job, right? Like they always.
I love podcasting, man, and but no, it doesn't pay as much as the day job. So I gotta pay the mortgage, man. But I know we kind of digress here, but that was our presidential trivia segment, which is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Vendor and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united.
And Garofalo's another one that's about the historic brands too.
Yeah,
he's a big fan. United Cigars, and bringing that back.
Yeah. Well, and Red Anchor goes back to the 1700s.
I was reading about that just a few days ago. It's funny that you mentioned that. Wow,
it's really cool. Yeah, I was so glad that they brought out some new Vitolas and they're making it regular production, because last year they released the Red Anchor as this limited release, and I was really sad because I was like, man, that's so much history. That's so awesome. It sucks that they're only going to do a limited, and like a lot of the cigar industry, limited doesn't always mean limited, but I'm glad they recognize the success of it. Like that's not a dig, because I think I'm so in love with the history of cigars and everything. So the fact that they're bringing that and making that regular production is a very United thing to do, which is really cool. So I'm hoping they find some other gems like that. That's pretty cool.
What a great story. It really is.
So Arnold, we've been talking quite a bit over the last few weeks and months and stuff, and up in anticipation of meeting at the trade show, and then obviously having you on the show tonight and everything, and we've talked a lot about tonight, and we've talked a lot in private about your friendship, of course, with Carlito and some other folks there in Tampa, and obviously your knowledge of the history of your hometown is second to none here.
Thank you.
But what's really what I've kind of coined, as we've kind of talked about, is the Tampa sticks together. Carlito is a big supporter of you, and, because you guys come from the same town, and it he recognizes the importance of Tampa as you do, and the Newmans, of course, and people of the like. But so when I approached you about tonight's next segment, which of course is our charity segment, you selected the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, which of course is founded and run by the Newman and Fuente families. But what were some other reasons why you wanted to talk about it? We featured it before in the past, so people may be familiar with it, but why is it important to you, and why did you want to talk about it tonight?
I mean, it's funny because when I was at the trade show, I spoke to several folks that are instrumental, in the foundation down there in the Dominican with what Carlito's doing. And I mean, it's just to hear the testimonies of the stuff that they've done down there. It's like they've really changed lives, like people's lives. And you hear these stories and you see what they've done. I mean, now, and I'm sure maybe Tony's watching the show. He's a dear friend of Carlito's too. Tony Cattingill. He was telling me about a technical school that they're going to be breaking ground on any day now. And it's like they're doing a school of the arts, a technical school. I mean, this is a place that, 20 years ago, it didn't even exist. It was in its infancy. And they basically took a very rural, poor area where, people were really struggling, and they've given these people an opportunity. They've given them education. They've changed their lives. Rich Myberg, like you had mentioned earlier, my dear friend and sales director, he's the big proponent of Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. He's one of the original members, actually, founding members as well. And, he's told me firsthand, he goes down there once a year to see the kids. And he's like, Arnold, he goes, these people, some years ago, they didn't have anything and they were always happy no matter what. He goes, but now these kids have an opportunity. Now, there's no telling where this can lead. I mean, these people could be, like Tony even says, they could be the next president of the country in a few years, So it's like you give people an opportunity and you give them education and you help them. And it's just unbelievable the stuff that they can accomplish. So that, I feel that it's really a great organization, a great charity. And, the Fuentes have done so much to help these people. I mean, there's stories of kids that have come out of that area there that, one kid, Emilio was his name. The kid was, I think he had a tumor. He had a brain tumor. And Carlito, he got on the phone with St. Jude and he got the kid. He brought him over here. He got operated, and he, he helped us save this kid's life. And when you hear, stories like this, you know that it's a really great organization. It's a really great charity. It works, So that's why I kind of wanted to go that route with them.
It's such an incredible foundation, and what's really great about like these families and stuff in the Dominican, Nicaragua, Honduras, and there's a lot of great charities run by a lot of great families in this industry. But what's really great about them, and specifically tonight, since we're talking about the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation, is that these families in this industry has brought so much to these impoverished countries, right? They've gotten so much from the land. They've brought so much to the countries already. I mean, the economy of Nicaragua, for example, and the Dominican too, and Honduras, it owes so much to the cigar industry. And yet, Carlito and Eric and Bobby, and they're, of course, their fathers, said that's not enough. We want to give back even more, and to create a foundation like this.
Exactly.
And like you said, they've brought healthcare, they've brought education. They've also bringing culture too. Like they're also breaking ground on a school of music, I believe, or
yeah. As a matter of fact, I think Sandoval's going to be down there when that happens. Now
he's involved with it too. Yeah, Arturo Sandoval. So it's incredible that what cigars have brought. Carlito has built some incredible relationships that have surpassed the cigar industry. We talk about Arturo Sandoval being one, but the people at Hublot, which is it's a luxury band of luxury bands. It's in the same vein as Rolex.
My God, yeah, it's huge.
Carlito also, he rubs elbows with royalty in the Middle East and stuff. It's and all over this world, in Dubai and stuff. But it's, these are very powerful, important people with an extraordinary amount of wealth, and that's great. But
it's phenomenal.
It's great for the Fuente family, but even more so what he's doing and giving back to the people that have brought him that opportunity. Just shows exactly what this industry is about. It's about giving back, and to make it full circle here, Arnold. I mean, this in no small measure, you're giving back to your father who gave you this opportunity. by honoring him with the cigar that I'm smoking, and the brands that you're bringing with the Serafin de Cuba, portfolio of cigars, and bringing premium cigars to market. That again, we haven't seen in over a century in some cases. Brands we're bringing back to life. This is a great story. It's awesome.
What just started as an idea, right? It just started as an idea, is a reality now. And I couldn't be happier about that, to be honest with you. And then Carlito, going back to the foundation, like you said, for him, it's all about giving back and helping people, and he's such a great person. I mean, who do you know that's so busy like that? This man is like the busiest person in the world, and he still finds time to dedicate time to the foundation and the kids. And wow, it's huge. It's like he always says, it's not about the cigars, it's about the people.
It's about the people.
And
yeah.
He's real. Like, it's the real deal. Like, he means it.
He does. Well, even the story you were telling earlier about it. He's incredibly busy, as you mentioned. He hears about his old friend, your father, passing away. A few years ago.
He picks up the phone and calls me. That was
picks up the phone, calls you.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I was touched. Absolutely.
So to bring this back to the launch of Serafin de Cuba cigars that you've been doing for a couple years now, but you're really steamrolling, you're gaining traction, and so you decide to bring them to the PCA trade show. And so you come to the PCA trade show as a vendor for the first time. Have you been to any trade shows prior to this as a
yeah. As a matter of fact, not as an exhibitor,
of course,
but I had been there before to help out my friends at Flor de Gonzalez, some other brands as well. Luis from La Tradición Cubana, Luis Sanchez. I don't know if you've dealt with Luis before. He has a little factory down in Miami. Great guy, makes great cigars too. I helped him out some years ago through a friend of ours, Benny Gomez, who had a cigar called Casa Gomez, which is no longer in production, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, going back before that, Flor de Gonzalez, Yali, her dad, they took me to the RTDA back then, and I won a couple years and I helped them out, and it was great. But like I said, for me to be able to come to PCA this year was a dream come true. It really was. And it's funny because I had told Rich, I said, Rich, he became our salesman, back in March, I think it was, and he did a great job, getting folks in there and opening up accounts, which is amazing, right? In such a little bit of time. And he said to me, he said, we got to go to PCA. And I said, Rich, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this year. He says, Arnold, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I said, you know what? He pushed me, and I said, you're right. Let's do it. And I tell you what, we went, and I think it was a successful event for me. I mean, a small company like mine, and we opened up a good amount of accounts, and we gave out a lot of samples. We talked to a lot of people. You helped, you came by and did the story on us too, which I'm very grateful for. And other ones as well. Even a Spanish magazine out of Mexico. I don't know if you saw it, Latino magazine, Humo Latino. They were there. They did a little story on us too.
Oh, that's great.
And very nice guys. Very nice guys from Mexico. Yeah. And it was just a dream come true, really. And for me to be at the PCA, like I told my friend Fernando, who was at the booth. I don't know if you remember meeting him. He was there with me. And I said, Fernando, I said, wow, here we are. And I told my friends yesterday that when we were hanging out at the store, I said, wow, we're on the biggest stage right here. I mean, here we are with the big guys. I was like, wow. I wish Dad could see it, but I think he is. I think he's watching.
Well, it was just, and I don't want to bore our audience with this, but it was such a great location for you too. Like you were really in the thick of it. You were really in the thick of it. You didn't have an ostentatious booth. It wasn't very big, obviously, and you're a small company, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it was like in the middle of everything. I mean, you were right next door to Chaz Palminteri, man, who was launched the Bronx.
I know. How great was that? Right?
That's like
what a gentleman, by the way. What a gentleman.
Yeah, I know we got to meet him at the same time, so that was a really cool opportunity.
That was cool.
But it was really great.
You know what he said to me when I walked up to him? I said, Mr. Palminteri, thank you very much. I gave him shook his hand and stuff, and I said, I'm a big fan of your movies. Bronx Tale especially. I love it. And he looked at me. He said, Bronx Tale is a story about my family, an immigrant family. And then I looked at him and I said, well, my family is an immigrant family too, from Cuba. My father, my grandfather. And he looked at me. He said, well, that's great. And we shook hands. It was just really a great little moment there. What a gentleman. I really enjoyed him.
What I love to, and he probably said it, I don't know, probably a couple hundred times to people and everything. But when we had the chance to interview him, is that a Bronx Tale is an immigrant story, but it's more than that. It's an American story, and
for sure.
And I looked around the room when he said that. I took a moment and I kind of looked around the room, and I was like, "There's so many of those stories right here."
Oh my God, right here at the PCA.
Yeah, it's an American, like he said, it's an American story. It's an immigrant story, but it's an American story, and you're part of that too.
It's a beautiful story. Thank you. So many great stories in the industry, right? I mean, people that came penniless. I mean, from Cuba, and like you said, some of the guys that that I really looked up to back in the day. Ramon Cifuentes from Partagas. He passed away, and Jorge Orlando Padron. Great guy too, and just legendary people, man. Great stories. I mean. Came here, it touches home. It's the same thing with my family, your family, like you said. They came here for an opportunity and for them to live out the American dream. I mean, wow, I remember, not to get political or anything, but we did cigars for President Bush back in like 2010. And that was a big deal for us, And I remember my father, he was there with President Bush, which he wasn't president anymore, but still 41 and 43, because his father was there. And we got a picture with W, and I remember my dad saying to me, he said, son, he said, only in America can you come up to the president, so he said, somebody like me that comes from from Cuba, an immigrant here, and to meet the president of the free world. Wow, that was such a big deal for him. What an honor, and he was right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's I'm lighting up I finished up the 1942. I'm lighting up a Florida Tampa now. I love this cigar. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Couldn't help myself.
I think I want to light one with you. What the hell? I'm gonna go with this one too.
Uh, but there's a part of your story that we haven't talked about that I think was really cool. That I didn't realize until I met him at the booth and everything. You're the second generation. You're the next generation. After your father, grandfather, and great grandfather, and but you had the next generation in your booth too, which was your son.
My son, yeah, there he was.
Yeah.
I'm honored. I mean, he's the fifth generation in our family to work with tobacco, and he's really getting into it. Funny thing is though, I don't know if he's got. I'll say this lightly, right? I don't know if he ever really had a choice in the matter, really, because he's been helping me since he was about 10 years old. I mean, we would go out to like local, farmers markets and just local events and stuff, and he was always there helping me. And ever since he was 10 years old, he's been helping me out. So, like you said, it's ironic the way things work out, because when Dad passed away, I basically had to go to the other shop full time, and the other shop that we had that I kind of bounced back and forth between, he just kind of took over. I said, look, here you go. And he was ready, and he's been running it all this time.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man in charge over there,
Of course,
I couldn't be more proud.
Let's also, we can't mention it without mentioning his name. Let's talk about it's Brandon Serafin. So he's
special shout out to him tonight.
Yes, exactly. He's the next generation of the Serafin family. And to just to turn a page on what we were talking about, the immigrant story becoming the American story. Brandon's not a Cuban name, and
no.
But so it's I think it's really cool that he does have a more I guess you could call it a more non-traditional name, or an American name, so to speak.
I still hit him with Arnold in the middle though. Brandon Arnold Serafin.
Okay, so he does have your name. That's cool.
Yeah,
I think it's so cool that to see younger generations, and that's kind of been the story lately in the cigar industry. We've seen a lot of these. We talk about a lot about the old guard, and but we've seen a lot of the younger sons now. They're in their 20s and 30s that are coming up and making their mark. Had the opportunity.
Isn't that great?
It really is. I had the opportunity to sit with.
I love it.
Lito Gomez, who's he's one of the
legend.
Yeah, and he's one of the actually biggest reasons why I'm sitting across from you today and in this. I smoked one of his cigars. It wasn't the first premium cigar I smoked, but it was it was my indoctrination into the world of premium cigars, is what I talk about. When I first smoked his original herald, which absolutely kicked my ass when I was 18 years old. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. But I've grown close with his son Tony, and now his son Lito Jr. is into the mix with the Soli, and
that's so cool.
And it's really great. Like even the Cuevas family, Alec Cuevas, who's in his early 20s, and he's doing things as the next generation in that family too, who's grown, been part of tobacco, and they're for years. They were much known for the Las Lavas factory, which has manufactured some great cigars over the years for some pretty popular brands during the boom and post boom and things like that. And now the last few years they've kind of come onto the market with Casa Cuevas, which is again, in comparatively speaking, is very similar to your story, which is kind of cool. It was
so many great stories in the industry, right? I mean, to me, there's no bigger honor, to one generation after another. It's what we do for a living, And it's funny because you were talking about the Canary Islands and stuff earlier. Did you know most of the people in the cigar business in Cuba back in the day, we were all Canary Islanders?
Mm-hmm.
The Fuentes, the Menendez, my family, Plasencia, the list goes on and on and on. So it was like a generational thing, And of course, the revolution came, and that kind of got cut in half. But we came, to all these other countries, and we've continued. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like you said, one bad thing that happens is a catalyst for other things, like the industry growing in Dominican Republic and in Nicaragua and all that. It never would have happened if it wouldn't have been because of the whole thing in Cuba.
Well, we did a tribute.
It's ironic.
We did a tribute show for Jose Orlando Padron a few years ago when he passed away, and it was a couple of weeks earlier we had interviewed Nestor Andres Plasencia, and that's like those stories, the of perseverance kind of mirror each other, and they're very similar. Like they're obviously the histories of their families are different, and they have their own
Sure.
individual mark, and they're unique and everything. But what's really great about it is it was all part of that catalytic event of the revolution, like we were talking about. But it goes back further, like
Of
you were talking
course.
about the Canary Islands and everything. So like it's a story of perseverance, um, and um, it here we are in 2023, still talking about it, and it's getting the torch is getting passed to this next generation, as we're talking about, like with
I
your
think
son's
that's the
brand.
best.
Mhm.
I just I couldn't be more honored, for him to do it. And we'll see, I mean, he's going to school and stuff. He's kind of halfway there. He already finished his associates in accounting. So I always joke around and tell him, I say, it's good because we do need my father was a great numbers guy. He was always about numbers, and that's what he did. He went to, School of Commerce in Cuba, and he became an accountant back in the day. So I think he's kind of inadvertently following his footsteps too. So I'm like, we could always use a good accountant because I'm good about making cigars, but I'm not so good at, handling all the numbers part of the business. I have helped my wife and family, and thank God, because it's a lot to take on. But I always say, we could use a good accountant. You might be that guy.
Well, the work you're doing now is setting the foundation for him to take over. Like, you're still a young man, let's it you're not part of this old guard in terms of like generational. Like, you're not
No.
you know you're not Carlito's age, for example, and everything like that. And Carlito's still going to be around for years too, but
Yeah, he'll be around for a while.
but
The guy's got so much energy, man.
yeah, exactly.
We
So
were just joking about that this week. We were talking about it. I said, you might be the only guy that I know, 69 years old, and you're still out there hitting the pavement. I mean, now he's taking another trip this week, and he's always out, man. He loves it. He just loves it. Like it's like the fuel that he has, the passion.
and the crazy thing is that man can still roll a cigar with the best of them.
Oh, hell yeah, he can. Absolutely.
They
But the
call him
problem is so many of them, right? I mean, is there anything in that whole catalog of brands that he makes that is not stellar? I don't know. Everything is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, everything from like, even like, I mean, I remember working in retail for years and stuff, and when I would grab like a quick cigar, like like the Curly Head Deluxe, it's
Yeah,
definitely
I
not,
mean, it's a
it's
cheap
not what
cigar,
it's a cheap cigar, but man,
but it's a good one
it's
for
good.
for the price. Oh my
Yeah.
God, It's like people have always said, they got to smoke too. I mean, people that are on a budget, man, it's you got to have a little bit of everything.
Cigars for everybody, for sure.
That's it. That's absolutely right.
You talked about the fact at PCA you were able to open up new accounts and everything like that. What was the other than the business aspect of it, what was your what would you view as the most successful part of that venture for you?
Well, the exposure for sure. Being able to put my name and my brands out there in front of such a big audience, and the interviews, and just the media attention alone was phenomenal. But on top of that, being able to speak to people that I hadn't spoken to in a long time, and some of those folks actually helped me out. They got me some customers, and they got me some attention, and like I said, I'm excited about it. I want to go back again next year too, and obviously there's only 9 months now, so it's a shorter time frame to get everything going. But it's funny because I was watching last week's episode with Michael Herklotz, which was very interesting when you guys had him on here, and he said something which really hit on all cylinders for me. And he said, everybody now is focused about going to the PCA and this media attention and making a big deal about it and releasing a brand and a new brand. It's nice if you can do that, but that's not what the PCA is about, man. It's about being able to take care of your customer base and making sure that they're taken care of and they're getting consistency, instead of being able to go there and launch a new product every year and putting that pressure on you, because I mean, a lot of these companies, that's what they're doing, is they're putting so much pressure on themselves trying to release a new product year after year. And I think that's not what it's all about. Herklot said that too.
Yeah, with the
that was an interesting take on it.
With the exception of the legacy brands that Michael was able to bring in, your companies are the same age, and you actually
Amazing, huh?
you technically have a larger portfolio than Ferriotego.
Wow, well, that's true. Very, very cool though. I mean, he was able to bring back the old Nat Sherman brands. That was very cool.
Yeah, really, really part of
That
the
was a hell of a
future
place
thing, so.
too.
Yeah, I never had the privilege. It's really quite sad, but
Beautiful place, man.
yeah, maybe one day we'll see something like that again. I'm
I
sure we
think
will.
so. I hope so.
Um, we're about to jump into some of our last segments for the night here, Arnold. But the last thing I wanted to this is kind of a funny aside, but my partner Coop on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition that I've had the privilege of partnering with for the
Great
last
guy.
6 years. Yeah, he's fantastic. Him and I always have this story joke. I'm trying to teach him how to take a selfie, and it's taken a couple of years, and he's getting a little better at it. But he always kind of he kind of ribs me because I like to take selfies, and I do it all over the place. And our favorite thing to do at the trade show is to we call selfie bomb Jose Blanco every year, and I do it every day. I find him, and
He's
in
a
the
character too.
middle of
Love Blanc.
conversations, I'll absolutely run up to him and I'll just snap a selfie real quick with him. It's one of my favorite things to do at the PCA. It's kind of been a running joke, but man, you were the king of selfies, man. Man,
Oh
you
my God, I
got
did a
pictures with
bunch, didn't I?
everybody. It was awesome, man. You got pictures with
It
everybody.
was great. I really
So.
did, man. I just everybody always laughs about that. I'm like, I like to do it. If I have time and I see people, I'm like, let's take a picture. Let's do it. It's memories, man.
Yeah,
We're creating memories.
gotta capture the moment. So
Absolutely.
right. Well, Arnold, thank you so much for your time tonight. We've got a few more questions to get.
I've had a lot of fun here. I got to tell you, it's been a
Thank you
great
so
show.
much. So the next segment is designed as a rapid fire. It's called This or That, and it's very simple. I give you a choice between two things. Some are cigar related and some are not, and you just pick between the two, and that's it is. So, let's talk about Tampa, and let's talk about restaurants. So, would you take Columbia Restaurant or the Field? And what I mean by the Field is any other restaurant in Tampa. Is Columbia your choice, or would you pick something else out of the Field?
Are we talking about just Spanish food?
No,
pretty much.
It's up to your interpretation. Yeah, I'm not going to lead you down any path you don't want to go. So, well, your call.
I'll tell you what, man. I do like the Columbia Restaurant a lot. I mean, I love the history behind the restaurant. It was a Tampa icon. I love it there. So what? Yeah, Columbia Restaurant is fine with me.
Columbia Restaurant. What's your favorite thing to eat there?
Believe it or not, if I go, I'll have a Cuban sandwich. I love the way they make the sandwich there. But and you know what? They have a salad. They call it the 1905 salad. It's awesome. It's got cheese in it, and it's like a Spanish dressing on it. It's just really, really great.
Nice.
So I really like the 1905 salad. That and a sandwich it's good for me, man.
The Cubano.
Yeah,
made in Tampa, not Miami.
A lot of history, man. Well, you know what? I love the Miami ones. Nothing against them. But the Tampa ones, man, we got the Cuban bread here, which is it's really great from La Segunda, which is what they use. They press it and it doesn't crumble, it doesn't fall apart. And I think we got the upper hand on Miami with that. But of course, my Miami friends will, they'll argue other aspects, about the pork, the marination, and everything. But I think they're both versions are good. I mean,
Let's go to tobacco, shade or sun-grown liquor specifically. I know what your father would chose, but what's yours, shade-grown or sun-grown liquor?
I think shade-grown.
Shade-grown too? Your father's son?
That's what I did with Dad, but a good sun-grown wrapper too is phenomenal too. I mean, they're both nice, really. The Ecuador sun-grown are phenomenal. That's what I got here on the Florida Tampa. Actually, it's an Ecuador Habano, but
Fishing or sailing?
Sailing.
Just in the Tampa area, or have you sailed? Have you done sailing anywhere else?
Throughout the Caribbean, a few places here and there. The Keys too. Okay. But it's funny because when I was a little kid, I used to love to go fishing with my uncle, who passed away many years ago, and he was like a notorious fisherman in the family, right? We'd fish off of bridges, and he had his boat, and man, I never had so much fun fishing other than with him. And I've gone out, fishing with other people after that, but it just never was the same because he was one of those people. He'd fish at night off the bridges. I mean, it was great. It was so exciting, you know.
Yeah, my son's been asking me to go fishing. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we got to do it. We got to go do it.
You got to do it. There's a lot of great places in Texas to do that too.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. Absolutely. Some great fishing
Yeah.
here. Okay, let's turn our attention to pizza. Stuffed crust or classic crust?
Classic crust for sure. And you know what? Like Jersey style, thin and crispy.
Oh,
Jersey, New York. Yeah. I'm always giving those guys from Chicago a hard time because you know how they make the big, thick, pizzas. Not a fan.
Pizza, man. I will fucking destroy any kind of pizza. I love deep dish. I love New York style. I know it's thin, thick, stuffed crust. Name it, man. I'm all over it. I love pizza.
You ever heard of a company called Giordano's? They have a chain of. They opened up here in Tampa like I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago or whatever, and they just did not do well, man. They folded like within I think it was like the first couple of years, and I think it's because it took so long. Like you'd sit down and you'd order a deep dish pizza, and it would take about an hour for them to bring it out. You know, I think people they like the fact that they can go get a regular style, classic or whatever.
Yeah, I mean there's so many places too. Like even like like the chain Pie 5, you can get a pizza literally. I mean it's designed 5 minutes. Like they throw it in, to cook it up, and it's done.
Sure.
Neapolitan pizzas got a lot of fire too. Wood fired Neapolitan, like these. I mean,
the best.
Ovens are like fucking 1,000 degrees. They throw them in there for 2 minutes, and it's like ready to go.
1,000-degree pizza.
It's crazy. So,
isn't that insane?
Yeah.
I had a really good pizza in Rhode Island last year, believe it or not, out of all places. And the guy that was in the kitchen, he came out. And I told him, I said, "Man, what a great pizza you're making here." He was a Spanish guy. He was from like Guatemala or Honduras, I think it was. And he learned how to make pizza in Brooklyn with some Italian guy. And then he ended up going to Rhode Island, and he makes like the best pizza in the Italian neighborhood of Providence.
Oh,
it's just unbelievable. Yeah. I thought that was really great.
Yeah. I know people talk about how great Connecticut pizza is. We're talking about tobacco, that's obviously a great tobacco state. And
Connecticut.
Yeah. Connecticut's on the map too.
Oh, yeah.
So before we went live tonight, you took me a little bit around, of course, the room that you're in, which is your smoking cabin that you've kind of built there on your property and everything. But if we're talking about outside, I know this seems kind of silly, but would you rather smoke a cigar on your front porch or your back porch?
Well, I guess my back porch. I kind of like my privacy, and I have a good backyard here, so I really enjoy being back here and just relaxing. It's kind of like my own little meditation area,
Yeah. We used to go down to this B&B down in Fredericksburg, Texas, and I loved used to sitting on the front porch, rocking chairs and smoking a cigar in the morning.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Right. And like Key West is like that. St. Augustine too. If you've never been, is phenomenal. Great little town. You can sit out there and people watch. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing better than people watch. We were doing that yesterday at my store.
Nice.
I have we're on the tourist drag there too in Tarpon Springs, and it's always fun to see folks, walking by and stuff. Of course, it was almost 100 degrees yesterday. It was really, really hot. But
back to cigars, Corona or Robusto?
Interesting. Okay, I'm more of a Robusto guy. I think I like the ring gauge, thicker ring gauges more. Mm-hmm. But some people, it's true. Like Jose Blanco, he loves a good Lancero or a good Panatella. Mm-hmm. 6.5 by 42. And that's a very classic size.
I love classic sizes like that. I'm a big Corona fiend. Like I think Corona is my favorite cigar size to smoke in, but I smoke probably more Robustas than anything else.
It's just a good cigar for the time, right? If you don't have a lot of time to commit, I just feel like it's perfect, half hour maybe.
Well, with Coronas and Robustas too, I always found you could smoke more. Like I can smoke 4 Robustas in the time that it takes me to smoke larger cigars. So,
yeah, I can't do anything myself personally past a 54. Like right now, I'm doing a 6.5 by 54, and that's as pretty much as fat as I'll go. I make a 60 ring, and people love it, but I personally am not a fan of the 60 rings.
I mean, they're good 60 ring gauge cigars, but I leave those to Coop. He's the 60 guy, so
he likes the 60s. Yeah,
he loves the
some
60s.
Guys love it. So. They dig it.
Go into holidays now. July 4th or Thanksgiving?
I say probably Thanksgiving because it's all about the food, right? The food and the family, and I think that's pretty cool. I have such fond memories of Thanksgivings back in the day when I was a kid. Fourth of July is fun too, though, but I find like Thanksgiving and Christmas are special.
Absolutely. All right. So if we're sitting on your back porch, since you said you like the back porch, what would you rather view in the distance? Would you rather like to see a lightning storm or shooting stars?
Lightning storm, which we have a bunch here in Tampa. That's one thing we have a lot of.
Well, it's the city of lightning, right? Other than it's
lightning capital.
Lightning capital. Yeah.
Lightning capital.
Hence the name of your hockey team there. So Tampa Bay Lightning.
I've lost like televisions and shit because of lightning here. It's crazy. I was so bummed out one time. We bought like I don't know. I think it was like a 65-inch back then, and like a year later, I'm like trying to turn the thing on, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Lightning. I didn't have it put in the surge protector.
Oh,
so after that, everything has a surge protector. Yeah. That was a bummer.
Crazy.
It happens.
All right. Well, that was this or that. We're going to move into our next segment, which is sponsored by Pestaña Cigars. Everybody eats. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pestaña Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pestaña, everybody eats. So we've talked a little bit about food today, Arnold. And so here's my question to you. What is the food or dish that you love that you wouldn't have tried if you hadn't been offered or forced to by someone else?
That's a tough one. I love Italian food. I love Chinese food. I'm really about the comfort. I'm a comfort food kind of guy, right? Like I love my Spanish food. I love Mexican food. What you know what? Not because we're talking about Mexico and stuff earlier. Probably Mexican food, man. Like my wife was always a big fan of it. And for many years, if I went to a Mexican restaurant, I was always like, oh, I just want to do like the chicken and this. And then I started trying all the different stuff, right? And now I really dig Mexican food, man.
What's your favorite dish? What do you go to? What's your go-to?
I think, well, you're probably going to say it's more of a Tex-Mex thing. I really like the fajitas a lot.
I knew you were going to say that.
Did you know I was going to say it?
Yeah, I knew
with all the peppers and everything. I love
fajitas are great. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
So that is more of a Tex-Mex thing. Huh?
Yeah, my grandmother made she made some unbelievable classic dishes, but the dish that I absolutely love, and it's also a curse because there's very few places I've been that actually make it really well. But my grandmother's recipe for chili relleno was just so unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I'll bet. Man. We had some amazing Mexican food in Vegas at that Tacos El Gordo place.
Tacos El Gordo, yeah. No, I've heard about it though. I saw that you went. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
really good.
Definitely need to hit
And then there's another place like right next to it called El Pastor, and it's like they're competing, but they're both really, really great. It's like which one is better? I don't know. They're both really good.
I could eat tacos every single day. Like Oliver Nouveau of United Cigar and we share this affinity for tacos, and I could eat tacos every fucking meal. I love tacos.
I think I could probably do that too. I mean, they're good.
Yeah,
with the guac on it, like the real deal, with everything on it. Oh my
anything, God. Yeah. I'll eat any kind of taco. Lingua, like cow tongue. Oh, so good. So fun.
Those are the best ones.
So good. Unbelievable. I love it.
We don't, I gotta say, we don't really have such great like taco places like that here in Florida. I mean, if you know how to find them, they're out there, but there's not as many. You know what I'm saying? Like Texas, Nevada, California. I mean, there's over there. It's like there's so many of them.
Yeah. Nothing disappointed me more when I went to, when some friends of mine have obviously know that I do the cigar thing. I'm telling them I'm going to Florida, and they're like, "Oh, I bet you had some good Mexican food down there." I was like,
"Not really, right?
Why would I have Mexican food in Florida, man? I'm going to eat Cuban food."
Right. And with me, it's like the opposite, right? Yeah.
Well, what I love about, because I love spicy food, but what I love about Cuban food is it's not that.
It's not spicy.
Yeah, it's not spicy.
Right.
And
not spicy at all.
That's what I was trying to convince some people in my family who aren't into spicy food. And I'm like, oh, I want to try these Cuban dishes. They're like, well, as long as you can make it not spicy. I was like, oh, that's the great thing about Cuban food. It's not spicy.
Yeah, it's not spicy. The beans and everything, it's just kind of mellowed out,
Yeah, savory.
But I do love my comfort food though. It's like the stuff you grew up on, the stuff my mother made, and Like I just like a good plate of rice and beans with pork. I mean, it's just I
Mm-hmm.
love it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. It's
Yeah.
just my go-to food.
Yeah, my grandmother made which is popular among a lot of Latin cultures. But she made a killer arroz con pollo as
Oh
well.
wow,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. My
Me-
mom used to make one good one too.
Mexican style, as I used to like. It's not the arroz con pollo that you grew up on. Like
Is
this is
it is it drier or is it like wet,
it's
like moist?
hers. So she made Spanish rice. So it's basically arroz rojo, what you would call like red
Mm,
rice.
okay.
But she did it with she garnished it and well, she garnished it with and also made it with Fresno chilies, the red
Wow.
jalapenos. And so Fresno chilies are very, very particular on my palate. I can taste Fresno chili in any dish because of that. And it's got this nice sweetness too. Fresno chilies have this beautiful sweetness, but this wonderful, wonderful heat that just really permeates the
Wow.
palate in this really great way. And so it was really funny. We were doing an aging experiment on Cigar Coop years ago with the Todos los Dias that Steve Saka made, and he's since discontinued it, unfortunately. But the Todos los Dias had this very distinct Fresno chili note, and I was talking about that on the show as we were smoking it, and some people were like, "That's like, how can you fucking taste the difference?" I was like, "No, you have to understand that flavor note is so permeated on my palate. I know exactly what
You
that tastes.
remember it,
I
right?
know exactly what that tastes like." And as Todos los Dias had this Fresno chili note
Wow.
that was just fantastic.
I got a
Just
friend of mine from Texas. He's probably watching the show right now. Mexican buddy of mine, and he grows his own peppers and everything out there in Texas.
oh
He's got like hatch peppers and everything from like New Mexico and
yeah.
oh,
Well,
amazing, right? The
Well,
stuff.
that was the secret to my grandmother's chili relleno. Is like
Hatch peppers.
yeah, everyone uses poblano peppers because
Wow.
it's the big pepper and everything like that, and you can actually get more
Sure.
in a poblano because it's thicker and bigger and everything like that. But that was the secret to my grandmother's relleno, is that she used these long, they're hatch chilies are like hatch chili is a brand. Hatch chili, I mean, and they taste different, trust me. But basically, they're Anaheim chilies. They're Anaheim chilies grown in
Oh,
Hatch, New Mexico. That's what they are.
wow. Okay.
But they taste different than any other Anaheim chili that you've ever had. I mean, they have a very distinct flavor. So like they are different, but it's not like a special hybrid chili that they came up with. But that was her secret. It was she used Anaheim or Hatch chilies in her relleno. That's how she made it, instead of using poblanos, which is traditionally what you see. But the other dish she used to make too, and I've made it a few times, and it's the only dish of hers that I've actually been able to replicate to where I'm like, okay, this is pretty fucking good. I haven't been able to do her relleno. I still can't do her Spanish rice. My mother is the only person that's ever come close to making the rice, the arroz rojo, like she used to. And my mother's the only one that can get close. I can't.
What's your favorite dish?
Well, the chili relleno is my favorite dish, but
Chili
the
rain.
dish I've been able to replicate the best is the chili colorado that she used to make, which
Wow.
is basically with pork, and it's made. You take all these dried chilies, sort of like pasilla and ancho and like uh a few others, and you obviously you steep them, you bring them back to life essentially, and then you blend them down into this really rich, dark, savory, spicy sauce that you cook the pork down into, and it just becomes so good. And it's not like carnitas.
Oh man,
It's cubed.
you're making me hungry here,
Yeah,
man.
it's cubed pork, and so you eat the
I was so in the
mm,
mood for that today, like a good Mexican meal. We didn't go because it was raining all day and we just kind of stayed home.
oh,
But maybe tomorrow. I got a place around the corner from here
good
that's
stuff.
phenomenal.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that was our Everybody Eats segment, sponsored by Pastania Cigars. If you always make sure that your serving style is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. So we've got a couple more segments here to cap off our evening, Arnold. So second to last question here, which is our Asylum moment, which is always brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just this physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So Arnold, this segment is about your moment with the cigar. So you know, your father and you built this legacy in retail. You know, you're very much part of the cigar community. You've enjoyed thousands of cigars in the community that you and your father created at Serafin de Cuba. And of course, you're building on that with the Serafin de Cuba cigars that we talked about all night. But every so often, you know, even though cigars are so community based and we have so many great moments that we've had with other people, there's still those few moments that we have with it's just the cigars and ourselves. So you've probably had maybe a dozen or so probably in your lifetime, maybe more, maybe less. And I'm not telling you to pick your favorite, but what's the one that comes to mind where you lit up a cigar and you enjoyed it in the moment? Were you listening to music? Were you watching a sporting event? Were you just alone in your thoughts? What was that moment about? And if you can remember, what was the cigar you were smoking?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. That's a tough one too. Well, like I said, you know, those cigars I brought back from Cuba when I was very young, obviously 14 years old. What the hell did I know about cigars back then? But you know, I brought them back and I really enjoyed the hell out of those cigars. And I think it was, you know, knowing the fact that my grandfather rolled them and everything, that was really, really special to me. But you know, then throughout the years, of course, I've smoked many great cigars. You know, when my son was born, and you know, my daughters too, and uh, I've smoked a little bit of everything, man. Throughout the years, we've smoked, you know, obviously Fuente cigars. I smoked Padrones. Um, so many great cigars out there. It's tough to name them all, you know.
Do you remember what
But
cigar you lit up when Brandon was born? Do you happen?
yeah, as a matter of fact, believe it or not, it was a local cigar made in Miami at the time. It was, I think it was Gigante de Pita, believe it or not, which was just rolled locally down there. It wasn't anything special, but they were good.
Mm-hmm.
They were good cigars.
It's good to mark those moments. I
But I do enjoy smoking a good cigar when I have the music on, listening to old Cuban music,
mm-hmm.
and I just kind of enjoy that. It's like a little like my me time. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
meditation.
Yeah, I was when I was getting married, my bachelor party, my friends bought a box of La Flor Dominicana Double Hero Maduros, or Naturals rather, excuse me. That I've always enjoyed that cigar. So they bought me a box, and you know, I smoked one the night before my wedding. I smoked one when my son was born. You know, 5 years later, I smoked one when my second son was born. And those are the only 3 cigars that I've smoked out of that box. I still have the box, and you know,
No shit.
yeah. So
Wow.
I'll be enjoying some of those cigars for years to come in milestone events.
How old are they right now? You think?
The cigars.
Yeah,
They are well, they're 13 years old at this point.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
They're only getting better.
mm-hmm.
Aging cigars is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I always say smoke them if you got them, but there's certain cigars you want to hold on to and you want to just kind of let them sit and rest, and you know, light them up for those special occasions. You know,
Definitely,
your Opus X's and you know stuff like that. You know,
for sure. All right. Well, this will cap off our evening, Arnold. Thank you so much for your time. I know you have we've talked about your family. We know you have a family. It's Sunday night. It's late. And for you to sit down for a couple of hours plus and talk to me.
It's been an honor, Bear. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. I like the format that you have here, and it's very, very easygoing. You know, I like that a lot.
The honor's mine, Arnold. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So let's finish off tonight's evening as we always do here on Ellis Fumar Takes with our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka's been knocking them out of the park 8 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So
Saka Squatch.
Saka Squatch, yes. So Arnold, so here we go. Let's get in our time machine here. I asked this question of, I wanted to do this. I don't normally do this. I usually come up with a unique question each week. But I asked Michael this question last week, and I thought this would be a really interesting question to ask back-to-back weeks, because while there are similarities to Serafin de Cuba and Ferio Tego, 2 completely different stories. And I think so I thought it'd be worth asking the question again. So let's fast forward a decade. Okay, so let's get in our time machine. So 10 years from now, what brand is Serafin de Cuba synonymous with? Is it, I'll give you an example of something to ponder while you're thinking about that. Is it synonymous with a brand like Monte Cristo? Has it become an iconic brand in this industry of legendary status and lore? Is it synonymous with the Fuente family, a family-run business of iconic stature and live affinity and dedication? Or is it more synonymous with, we'll use Steve as an example, a boutique brand that has garnered a lot of fame, a lot of following in its short history. In 10 years, you'll be, 14 years old as a brand, or just under that a little bit. What brand will Serafin de Cuba be synonymous with?
That's a tough question. I'd like to say that I think all of them are doing very well. I think Florida Tampa might be the one that might stick the most, though. I think that one, La Floridana, might be the other one. But if I had to pick, it'd probably be between those two. And Prince of Wales, I mean, who knows? I still say that there's a big segment of the population that loves Connecticut wrappers. So I guess it's tough to tell, but who knows? I'm crazy. I mean, maybe by then I'll be like Pete Johnson, that has a million brands too that's out there, and they're all really good too.
Well, let's go with your instinct here.
Maybe Florida Tampa.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go with your instinct. Let's talk about Florida Tampa for a second. I'm still smoking it right now, and I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, it's my favorite in your portfolio. I'm smoking it again. I'm like, yep, this is the jam, man.
This is the one, right?
So why did your instinct go there? Why do you think Florida Tampa will be the one that people are talking about, smoking about, and it's the one that will kind of stands the test of time, to use a turnabout phrase?
I think the history behind the brand is great. The artwork I just love, and I just feel like there's something romantic about this brand. And I think the blend that we did here is a blend for serious cigar smokers. And I think the people that really appreciate a medium to full body cigar really, really dig the cigar. And I just keep on getting such great reviews on it, and just people have come out and told me, they're like, yeah, man, Florida Tampa, that's going to be a winner. That's going to be the one. I'm like, I hope you're right, man. From your ears to, from your mouth to God's ears, right? Yeah.
Right.
But I just love the history behind it. I really do. So, I'm honored to have the cigar.
So here's my comment about the Florida Tampa, along with the rest of your portfolio. And Arnold, please don't take this the wrong way. I absolutely love the history, and I want everyone to appreciate what you're doing and the way that you're doing it, and the history of these cigars, and the honoring and the homage that you're paying to your father and grandfather. But these are very dated and classic looking cigars. And, people may not appreciate it, unfortunately, which sucks. But I think why your instinct, and why that, if you'd asked me, if you'd turned the question on me, I probably would have said it too. Not just because it's my favorite out of your blends, because I think all of them smoke fantastic. Everyone needs to try these cigars.
Thank you.
Everyone needs to try. There's something for you in this portfolio. Now, again, my audience who is like the heavy, full-bodied smoker, right now there's nothing in the portfolio that's going to fit that bill. You probably like the 1917 the best, but there's.
Well, I do have one, but I don't think you've tried it yet.
Okay.
And you know what it is? It's a San Andres wrapper. I have to send you some of those so you can sample.
Okay.
Tell me what you think about them.
Sounds good.
But they're like a medium to full, like real full. Like even I had one on an empty stomach one day, and it kicked my ass. I gotta tell you, it
sat you down.
It kicked my ass. That San Andres wrapper is strong, man.
Yeah. But I think that's why Florida Tampa is going to be the one. I think your instincts are right there. I think it's the original label, but I think it has the staying power. I think it's the cigar with the blend that it can be mapped to anyone. It's the most approachable about everything for everybody. From what
it's in the middle, right?
Yeah, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
And while everyone's still, there, you'll always have a market for your father's cigar and the Prince of Wales because everyone loves Connecticut Shade. This cigar, I think, is the ticket. So I agree with your
I think
instinct
so.
there. So
Well, we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Right in 10
yeah,
years, we'll set a date now, and we'll come
there you
back in
go.
10 years and talk about
Exactly. Were we right? Were we wrong?
it.
It's marked. It's
Shit.
here on July
You know what's
23rd.
funny though? Yeah, write it down, man. 2023. There was somebody at the show. I'm not going to say who it was, but they came up to me, and it was somebody that Rich had sold the cigars to, and he said to me, he said, you know what? He goes, I never heard about your cigars, and I said, well, I said, we're the best cigars that nobody's ever heard of, is what I told him, and he started laughing about that, right? But he said to me, he goes, when Rich approached me about the cigars, yeah, I heard the story a million times, a Cuban guy making cigars, yada, yada, yada. He goes, and your cigars, exactly like you said, he goes, they were very traditional in the packaging and everything. He goes, but when I started smoking them, he said to me, he goes, now I realize that they were really great. He goes, they're really great. They were good. And I'm a believer. Now you made a believer out of me. And I said, well, thank you. There's no bigger honor for me than that, than to hear that.
Huge compliment.
Huge compliment. Yeah.
I love this.
And he's a retail partner of ours now too. So that's great.
Terrific. I love the story, Arnold. I love what you're doing. Like I said, I love the cigars.
Thanks, sir.
This is, again, if you guys are watching or listening, more than likely you probably haven't had an opportunity to try these. You need to. You can check out what's your website?
SerafinCigars.com, and that's SERAFIN cigars.com. And like I said, as of recently, we've partnered up with a lot of different shops throughout the country, and hopefully we're going to be getting into more of them, within time.
Do you know your current store count by chance?
We're probably right now at about 35 so far. So it's getting there.
Yeah.
Little by little, we're getting them out there.
It's beautiful.
Different parts of the country too, man. We have a good customer of ours in Nebraska. We have some in Rhode Island, up in the Northeast. Rich has a lot of them down here in the Southeast, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina. So we're getting steam little by little.
Fantastic.
But you know what? We're growing little by little, but like Rich always says, slow but steady. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And that's, I'm happy where we're putting it. They're being well represented, and, they're being represented in a really great way. I'm honored,
I'm not trying to ask a loaded question here at the back end of the show, Arnold, but you
and Ohio too. In case they're watching in Ohio, they're really popular up there lately. Casa Aficionado and Jimmy.
I know you got Texas representation while you're at the show, so there will be coming to a Texas retailers near you.
Coming soon to a theater near you, or to a store near you.
But obviously with you expanding and scaling the company and everything, where have you given any thought to how you're going to scale production and where that will be manufactured?
Well, Barry, you know what? Now that you're on the subject, I have started to make cigars in Nicaragua recently, and we've expanded a little bit already in that direction. So I'm happy with that decision, and the quality is still coming out really, really great, I think. So I'm getting ready for that if the moment happens, for that same reason. Because I have a feeling that it's going to continue to grow. So,
are you comfortable at this point disclosing what factory you're using?
It's a small factory that I actually own a little bit of the factory in Jalapa, actually, Jalapa, Nicaragua.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, very cool. Well, fantastic. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad there's already plans of scaling and everything like that. That makes me ecstatic, because like I said, I want this story to thrive, Arnold, and I know
thank you very much.
Do as well. And it's, like I said, it's great to see. It's fantastic. So
thank you.
Wonderful. Well, guys, like I said, check out SerafinCigars.com. Check out retailers. There are 30 plus retailers in the United States so far. By the time this hits the airwaves, maybe there'll be some more, and you guys can check it out. So But you can always check it out at serafincigars.com. He's Arnold Serafin of Serafin de Cuba Cigars, and we really appreciate
Thank you, Bear.
tuning into. Oh, thank you so much. So for everyone out there, thanks all the likes, the shares, the comments. Keep them coming. If you tune in to our show here every Sunday on Facebook, this is where we do our show every Sunday night, starting at 9:30 Central. We've got a great list of guests coming up in the following weeks. We'll be announcing those as they come here in short order, and that's where we announce it, is on our Facebook page. So hit the like button, hit the follow button. You'll be able to keep up with our show. If you are a YouTube subscriber, great. That's fantastic. We got our YouTube channel as well, Olosu Fumar. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can stay abreast of all of our videos like this interview, which we'll be publishing later this week on YouTube. And if you're listening to us later on podcast, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you hit the download, subscribe, and review button as well. Do me a favor, if you already are a subscriber, hit unsubscribe, but then hit resubscribe, because that actually helps my numbers and allows me to get great guests like Arnold whenever I want. That's why they keep coming. So I do really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much, Arnold. It's been fantastic having this wonderful conversation with you. So for everyone out there, I'm Bear Duplessis, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. This was our 257th take. He's Arnold Serafin. Guess what, everybody?
Phenomenal.
We'll see you next time.
I'm so honored, Bear. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Take care.